Good morning, good morning, good morning, amazing law nerds. Though I guess today it's good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. I was waiting to see what we would learn from the South Carolina Supreme Court today. And you know what we learned? Today is not the Murdaugh day. I thought it might be. I thought a lot of it might be. But today was not the Murdaugh day. So you know what we're doing today? We're going to Idaho instead. We have had some updates that we need to talk about in Idaho. And both the Kohberger case and the TikTok psychic case, because we were waiting for a few things in the TikTok psychic case, weren't we? And we have some new responses from the professor. But the stuff going on in Idaho with the Kohberger case was really interesting to me because I don't think we've seen a case that has this much stuff going on after a plea like this. And I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? So we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to do a quick update from yesterday's stream. We are going to go to Idaho. We are going to talk Kohberger criminal case. Then we're going to talk TikTok psychic defamation case. How's that sound? All right. I don't know why my chat on my end is not working. Where is it? Oh, there we go. All right. Now we have a chat. But why post plea is there so much going on? It's a lot. So quick update from yesterday. Kohberger, TikTok psychic. Kohberger will be quick. TikTok psychic should be quick too. EDB has much going on, like every other day in May. I don't know if any of you relate, but pending deadlines tend to make everything busier. And so with the amount of stuff we have going on in May, there is much upheaval. We have a members only tomorrow. Members, I'm going to be sending you a notification in the app and letting you know what time. I have a time I would like to stream. However, apparently my internet line needs to be moved. So whoopee. So I'm unclear exactly what time that is starting and ending tomorrow. So we will be live tomorrow. I will keep you as informed as I can about what time. 11 JD in the chat said, I'm confused. I thought the plea ended the case. One would think, best Tia ever said on your birthday. My birthday does not exist this year. We've got so much going on. We've got family coming, graduation. Travis has graduation and then like a 48-hour turnaround to leave for tour. And then from tour, he's got like a 24-hour turnaround to move into college. So we are busy. And then also people coming to the house means that there are projects that weren't urgent that are now urgent. So some of this is me. Some of this is Dr. B. And a lot of this is we have to get rolling. We have to get rolling. Plus, it's like my birthday, Dr. B's birthday, Mother's Day. It's all the things. It's all the things. Today's Ava's birthday. Happy birthday, Ava. Though you're at school. Your mom will show you later. Happy birthday. Time is a construct. But it'll all be fine and it'll all get done. And we'll get to do all the things. We'll get to do all the things. For the kids, we are trying to figure out a time that T can join us to do a little chit chat and then say, hey, hello, how are you? And goodbye. We can't even think about that this week because we have to finish AP exams. Once he's done with AP exams, he's basically done with high school. So we might have a little time. And we have a sentencing on Friday. So that's the plan for the week. We have a sentencing on Friday. We have a members only stream tomorrow. Today, we are going to Idaho. We've got to go to New York first, though. We got a quick update. We got to talk about it. So we're going to roll the intro. We're going to... For a case that's settled with Lively and Baldoni, there's still a lot that indicates it's not settled yet. We're going to talk about that first. Let's go. That, Emily, that audio is not in the right place. What were we... Why did it move? I don't even know. I was probably listening to music. I might have been building a playlist. Either way, We'll fix it in post.
Hey there, I'm lawyer and legal analyst Emily D. Baker, and this is your go-to destination for live court coverage. I break down the law, the strategy, and the
only, but it's not working perfectly on that end for me. I have no idea why YouTube is freezing. It's not on my end. I don't know. So we're going to jump into what's going on with the Baldoni, Lively, all of the all, because we've got to see what's going on with all of the all. Yesterday, we talked a bit about the Baldoni, Lively settlement. And with the Baldoni, Lively settlement, also, you guys, I don't know, Miguelina, it didn't on my end. I don't know. I have spicy weather. I'm sorry if it buffered. Refresh YouTube. It's not you. It seems to be the entire chat. Streaming is dynamic. Yesterday, we talked about the media statement from Baldoni, Lively, and et al. I mean, technically, I am fighting the urge to be like, well, actually about this, but Wayfarer is technically the defendant. Baldoni, as the individual, was already out of the case. I saw a lot of great questions at the end of stream yesterday, and then on our case brief and on the YouTube short that I put out about this, about is Justin Baldoni going to have to pay legal fees in this case? Again, this is my speculation. My speculation is that Wayfarer, the business, has been paying all these legal fees, not the individual. And I suspect there's probably also a component of insurance in that, because everyone that was sued individually was either a member of Wayfarer Studios or working with Wayfarer Studios. I think the business was probably who was paying for legal fees, not the individuals out of pocket. That is my speculation. I would actually be shocked if it was the other way around. Then there were a lot of questions about, okay, but is this actually settled though? This is a fair question. What did we talk about yesterday? We talked about the fact that with settlement comes NDA, like do not speak. Well, don't speak seems to only be a no doubt song at the moment, because Bryan Friedman, one of the lawyers in this case, has been vociferously chatting about this case, which indicates to me, that they have not hammered out the final form of the NDA. I don't know which evolution of the NDA we're in, but it clearly hasn't been signed by the parties, because we were just seeing that statement come out, and then the fact that there is so much talking about it. I'm like, just sign the NDA. Or is it not? It can't be signed yet, or we wouldn't see this much talking. And then we still don't have a notice of settlement filed with the court. We still don't have a notice of settlement with the court. We still don't have a notice of settlement with the court. What are we doing? What are we doing? How is there still no settlement? A notice of settlement is generally a one-page doc that says to the court, hey, please vacate future dates. We have reached a settlement. We will be finalizing the settlement and then making a motion to withdraw the case within this period of time. There is still no notice of settlement filed with the court. It's very unusual to me that we saw a statement that indicates a settlement and there is nothing on the docket. Normally, the notice of settlement hits the docket before anything else happens. So I'm very interested to see if we get to the hearings that are supposed to happen on Friday and we still don't have a notice of settlement. Because right now, that notice of settlement has not been filed. Why do you release a statement if it's not all done? So, I'm with you, law nerds. I'm over it. I'm like, great, you settled. That's what should happen. It's a civil case. It's a lot of people fighting over a lot of things. Great, 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 great. But without a settlement agreement being signed, we don't have a settlement yet. The trial date has not been vacated. The jury selection date has not been vacated. The hearings for Friday have not been vacated. So I'm keeping an eye on it, but now my eye is just like, What are all of you doing? So we'll see. Not done yet, but Kay says if the notice is not filed, what happens with the soon-to-be trial? It goes to trial. The dates haven't been vacated. So there's no trial. Or there will be a trial if they don't vacate the dates. So I'm surprised because even if the settlement agreement wasn't completely finalized, but they know that they're settling, you would generally see a notice of settlement filed on the docket that said, Your Honor, we have agreed to settle the case. Please vacate all future dates. And we need to check in 30 days for a motion to dismiss with prejudice. I wonder if they're keeping the trial dates there to pressure the finalization, that's even a word, of the NDA and the settlement. But Eli09 says, can they back out of a settlement after they've released a statement? The statement's really just a statement. The statement's really just a statement. There is, as far as the court docket goes, there is no settlement at this point because the court has not been formally given notice and the dates have not been vacated. So they say they settled. I'm going to wait and see. So I want to see the notice of settlement on the docket. But until then, we're going to keep an eye on it. It's going to be very interesting. All right. Are we ready to go to Idaho? Are we ready to go to Idaho? Let's go to Idaho. I'm ready to go to Idaho. I've seen a number of you ask about sidebars. That's not the topic today. So if that's not the topic today, I do not anticipate covering anything Corey Richins until after her sentencing. I might cover it after her sentencing, but that is not our topic today. Today we are going to Idaho. We have some updates that we need to get to. We do not have sidebars on the docket today. Don't worry, when they're on the docket, you'll see it in the title of the video. We're not switching gears mid-video. Are we ready to fly? Are we ready to fly? Let's fly. Law nerds, buckle up. All right, y'all. What in the world is going on with the ongoing Kohberger case? Because Ann Taylor, Bryan Kohberger's attorney, put out a statement, the likes of which I don't think I've ever seen. And at this point, I have lawyered for over 20 years. It really does take a lot. It takes a lot for me to be like, what is going on? But no, not in the cases we cover. In the cases we cover, I'm sitting here going, really? What are we doing? What are we doing? So Ann Taylor puts out this statement that made me go, things that make you go, what the fuck is going on? Because the statement came across my feed and I was stunned. So for quick road so far on this, Bryan Kohberger pled guilty. He waived his right to appeal. Apparently there's another book. Am I going to give everyone the name of the other book? No, because I don't want to bump it in the algorithm. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know what it's about. Most of the books that have come out about Idaho are speculation, rumors, and the rest of it. I don't know what's in this book, but apparently in book, we're just going with book. In book, one of the defense experts talks about their opinions on the case. But Emily, aren't there NDAs and non-dissemination orders and all of the things? Yeah, there are. Wouldn't that cover experts? Yes, it does. So how is an expert talking in a book? I don't know. And the defense seems to be pissed. Absolutely pissed. It seems also that a lot of you are having chat issues. Magdalena, will you just keep an eye on that? It seems that today and yesterday, we've been having a ton, not y'all being an issue. Y'all are lovely. Not y'all, but like the tech behind making the chat work seems to not be working for all of you. So that yesterday and today we've been having tech issues. So let's keep an eye on that if we need to forward that to the powers that be to be like, yo, what is happening? It's not happening for everybody, but we will keep an eye on it so we are aware. Thanks, y'all. Also, if you're having a strange user experience, it's not just you, it's not your internet. So this expert apparently gave comments about the case to a book that either is about to be released and that's why it's being talked about, or has just been released. I don't know. We are going to take a look at the defense statement because I have never seen anything like it. Hold on. When the defense is fighting with their experts after a guilty plea, it's a really unusual thing. Also, we learn subsequent to that there is still an ongoing investigation about the leak. Do you guys remember the leak? The Dateline leak? Right. A whole bunch of evidence in this case got leaked to Dateline and made its way to, a streaming service near you. And the court was pissed. So not only can that be a criminal investigation, but that can also be contempt of court. Contempt of court can be civil or criminal. The Dateline leak investigation is still ongoing. Judge H didn't ever strike me as we're just going to let it go kind of a guy. Judge H struck me as if somehow I die before this is resolved, I will be doing this from the spirit realm until I find who dared defy my order. That's the vibes I was getting from Judge H. So first, we're going to take a look at this scathing statement from defense attorney Ann Taylor. And then we are going to take a look at what's going on with the investigation into the Dateline leak. Because why is there still this much going on? Both of the reportings on this case are coming from the Idaho Statesman. I do always do my best to find local outlets when they are talking about a story. So that's where we are pulling this from. Let's take a look at this. Well, I'm going to take a look at the scathing statement and read it in its entirety. Then we're going to go to the article because every article I found kind of pieces the statement out, and that's not the way it was intended to be. For those of you that are like EDB, you look like you are in dark mode. My camera hates it when I wear a black hat and all black. It really throws off my white balance. I know. And it's moody outside. So yes, it's moody outside for sure. Let's look at this full statement. I'm going to read this full statement, and then we're going to go through the article regarding it. Ann Taylor, lead attorney for Bryan Kohberger, released this statement April 29th, 2026. Quote, this is a good question. I'm going to grab this. This is Lou Grace. I'm going to come back to this question in just a second. I'm going to come back to that question in just a second. Wait, where'd it go? I know we've got a lot of people in chat. I love it, but I was just trying to, there we go. I'm going to hold it. There's a reason. Quote, we write regarding the recent statements made by Brent Turvey. I think that's Turvey. Turvey. Turret. Whatever. He was an expert hired by the defense late in the case. His confidentiality agreement was signed October 30th, 2024, and continues to this day. period. The agreement with Mr. Turvey was crystal clear that all materials, as well as any opinions that he developed as an expert, were to be kept confidential. Mr. Turvoy, Turret, Mr. T, he would never, was reminded that when the court lifted the non-dissemination order, the duty of confidentiality continued until he was released from it by the defense. In his role as an expert, Mr. T, Turvey, was asked solely to provide an opinion about the crime scene, nothing else. This will play in when we pull up the article that has this statement kind of sparsed throughout. I went and put it back together into one statement. Mr. Turvey was asked solely to provide an opinion on the crime scene, nothing else. As such, he had access to view some items related to the case. He was one of many experts relied upon by the defense team in this case. Mr. Turvey has not been released from his confidentiality agreement and is now speaking about topics that are still confidential, many of which are outside his areas of expertise. How to ruin your career as an expert in one interview. It goes on to say, quote, this is a direct quote, "The defense team is appalled by Mr. Turvey's behavior and his release of documents and information that he knows are confidential. It is the opinion of the defense team that Mr. Turvey's conduct falls outside the ethical and legal norms that are applied to experts in criminal cases, and his reliability should be seen through the lens of this conduct." And that's your career. So, if anyone Googles this expert in the future, that statement's going to come up. Let's take a look at the article about this, because he gave opinions regarding the handling of evidence in the Kohberger case, seemingly undermining the defense attorneys, the plea, and throwing fire onto flames of speculation, conspiracy, and allegations, which will probably sell books, sure, but isn't helpful to anyone. It's disrespectful to the victims, it's disrespectful to the defendant and the defense attorneys, and it violates his agreement. Will the defense team sue for the breach of confidentiality agreement? God, would that be interesting? That would be interesting. But we've got a scuffle brewing. There is going to be a kerfuffle with this. Actually, will that might work. Hold on. We'll do it. We can do it that way. Wait, come back. I learned while we were recording the podcast that I could move around this screen better without readjusting the size of the screen. It literally has changed my world. Okay. Kohberger defense team makes first statement since his sentencing scolds own expert. His reliability should be seen through the lens of this conduct, attorney for convicted Idaho murderer Bryan Kohberger said. Look, I appreciate that the media always puts out these statements. I hate that they splice them into sound bites. Lawyers for convicted killer Bryan Kohberger have taken aim at a forensic scientist hired to help their client's defense. I feel like this advertisement is staring at me. Does Dr. B need new shoes? I don't know. Apparently he does. I felt like I was just like, why are you watching me read documents out loud? We're just trying to stream. Lawyers for convicted killer Bryan Kohberger have taken aim at a forensic scientist hired to help in their client's defense at his Idaho murder trial, asserting their first statement since he pled guilty last summer that the expert witness violated a standing confidentiality agreement. I think they should sue. I don't know what their damages would be. And their confidentiality agreement probably doesn't have a damages provision, but it could be enforced by the court. Attorney Ann Taylor joined by public defenders, and these are the other attorneys on the case, alleged that recent public statements by defense expert Brent Turvey, including earlier this month to the Idaho Statesman, fall outside the ethical and legal norms that are applied to experts in criminal cases. Among a host of experts, Turvey was hired by Kohberger's attorneys late in the case. They go on to quote the statement saying solely to provide an opinion about the crime scene, nothing else. He signed a confidentiality agreement October 30th, 2024. They go on to quote that statement again, saying the agreement with Mr. Turvey was crystal clear that all materials, as well as any opinions developed as an expert, were to be kept confidential. The article goes on to say, in response to a prior interview request, Turvey provided the Statesman with a previously unreleased photo of a police evidence bag. You can't do that. You can't do that. He said it showed the police chain of custody for a key piece of evidence in the case was insufficient and would have been challenged at trial. I have a question for you, chat. Do any of you think, and please tell me if you do, that Ann Taylor left any stone unturned in this case? Like, if there was an issue, I'll find it. Oh my God, George, I didn't know you were back there watching the birds, but George was behind my other monitor and just walked out from behind my computer monitor, between my computer monitor and the window. And I was like, what is walking on my desk? George, how long have you been back there watching the birds? All of you are saying no. She excavated it. She really did. She found problems that weren't problems. Like, if you got a problem, I'll find it. If you don't got a problem, I'll still argue it. Yeah. No stone unturned. So, for an expert to create a problem where there may not be one, including a chain of custody issue, is wild. Absolutely wild. Turvey, releasing a photo of a police evidence bag, said it showed the police chain of custody for a key piece of evidence in the case was insufficient and would have been challenged at trial. The pretrial motions were done. The defense has a plan. They were so thorough in their pretrial motions. And do you know what that says to me? That there is more information that this expert might not have, and he is making conclusions on incomplete information. That's what this indicates to me based on Ann Taylor's statement. That's how I'm reading it. Because they did not plea until all of the evidence was done. Swansock says, who cares after the guilty plea? It does not allow this case, well, the author of the book who put this statement in it to sell books, and those that will continue to talk about the case despite a guilty plea, and the more uncertainty is raised, the more unsettling it can be to victims' families and others. It doesn't let it ever rest. But Kohberger waived his right to appeal. The level of fuckery in this is pretty high. So, why is it the same ad? We're not scrolling. We're waiting. We're just not scrolling. So, the expert is saying that this would have been challenged at trial. This was not his area of expertise. This is not what he was hired to do. And it sounds like he doesn't even have all the evidence. Everything gets challenged at trial. And if there is an issue, I honestly think that Ann Taylor's going to bring it up. But we can't look at what may or may not have been in trial. And I don't see this as a case where the defense was not doing their job, and they have more information than the expert does. So it's wild. So let's continue on. In response, Lee in Tennessee said Emily Turvey was upset. He found out about the plea after already done and didn't expect his theory. Well, it doesn't matter. He's hired to be the expert. He's not the defense attorney. His feelings about it are pretty irrelevant, honestly. It's the defense attorneys asked him to look at the crime scene, not the chain of custody. So you kind of got to stay in your lane on that, because the defense attorneys are the ones who govern the strategy, the decisions, what the experts are looking at, which experts are looking at it, how they're looking at it. So if experts are saying, well, I want to look at more, if they do not have the entire case file, it's not what they are asked to do. So I'm with the attorneys on this one, but also I'm looking at this from the perspective of an attorney. I know how much information attorneys have prior to a trial that doesn't ever come in at trial. I also know that they're not giving every expert every single thing. And they're not having conversations with their experts generally about their strategy if they're just asking someone for an initial evaluation and an initial report and then deciding if they're going to use that expert at trial. It's an exploration. And that's what it sounds like here. So I can understand why Ann Taylor is so pissed. I also think that we saw this defense team do all of the work and raise all of the issues. They raised a ton of issues on suppression. They raised a ton of issues as to search warrants. So it's inappropriate behavior for the expert, even if he's mad that he thinks that there's more he could have done. That's not his call. So that's up to the defense. It continues on to say that the Moscow police chief, Anthony Dallinger, and legal experts in Idaho unassociated with the high-profile case told the Statesman that Turvey's allegations were unfounded and would have not resulted in the knife sheath found at the Moscow crime scene, nor the DNA located on it being excluded at trial. It sounds like that's what the defense believed also. If the defense thought that they could get the knife sheath excluded at trial, there would not have been a plea in this case. It was very clear to me that the defense made the judge close every single door before a plea was ever even contemplated. And they had gone through all of those motions. We watched all of those motions. And there's a process here. And experts aren't the decision makers. They're not the defense attorneys. They're consultants. Turvey is also thanked and features in a new book on the Moscow homicides, written by a former FBI agent who did not work on the case. The book hit shelves. Oh, that's why this is all coming up. This week, last week, the week that this came out, last week of April. Quote, the defense team is appalled by Mr. Turvey's behavior and his release of documents and information that he knows are confidential. Kohberger's defense team continued saying his reliability should be seen through the lens of this conduct. You guys know I'm a processes person. There are some defense attorneys, if we look at a case, that I might say, well, is their client upset about this? These aren't those defense attorneys, man. No one's accusing Ann Taylor of not unearthing every stone in this case. On Tuesday, in an interview with the Statesman, Turvey rejected his former contract employer's accusations. He said that the state already has released almost everything he's talked about. He called the defense team's claims about him a deflection away from issues with the case after questions have continued to be raised about inconsistencies in the investigation and the decisions that led to Kohberger's plea deal. The plea deal can't be undone. No matter how much people want to wring their hands about it, it's done. They go on to say, the interview with the expert goes on to say, the bottom line is, in my 30 years, I've never divulged confidential or case-sensitive material that was outside my realm or outside my anything. Well, that's not what the defense said. He goes on to say, nothing that I shared was not already public. I don't know if that was already public. Nothing that I shared was not already public, or at least provided in discovery that was actually data dumped by law enforcement in Idaho. Oh, so it might have been discovery, but not public? Because there's a hedging to that. Rarely has Turvey chosen to speak with the media unless asked to do so by a client, he added. This case is different, he said. This is an extraordinary case with extraordinary types of exculpatory evidence that were not being brought to light. It is a conclusory statement, though. Turvey said that he was referencing items and information that allegedly could disprove Kohberger's guilt. And so that's the reason for the discussion with the author of the book, because so much stuff was being misstated and buried and not talked about by both sides. It goes on to say that he challenged Taylor and her team to point to specific violations of the confidentiality agreement he signed because nothing he said reveals attorney-client privileged information or would cause harm to their client. That's not always the standard, though. Like, we're parsing what the standard is. Most confidentiality agreements are, you can't talk about this case. You can't talk about your opinions formed or what you learned. And her statement did say, her statement did say that his agreement covered materials and opinions were to be kept confidential. That's not just attorney-client information. That's also your opinions, your thoughts on this case. The expert goes on to say, I couldn't possibly guess what's in her head. No song lyrics, Emily. You can sing Zombie on your own, chat. We're trying to get through it. I couldn't possibly guess what's in her head, he told the Statesman. You'd have to ask her to be specific. And if she's too specific, she can get herself in a lot of trouble. Are you threatening me? Are you threatening me? Yeah. That great Cornelio. No, we have just time warped back to the mid-90s, but between Zombie and Beavis and Butthead, you'd have to ask her to be specific, and if she's too specific, she can get herself in a lot of trouble. I don't like this at all. I don't like this at all. This kind of mess, I am not a fan of. I know the ads for the shoes are like, what is Dr. Baker Googling? This is the ad that we're getting. It goes on to mention at the very end of the article that Kohberger 31 was sentenced to 4 life terms in prison with no chance of parole. Right. Why in the world is this expert speaking about this case at this time? It seems that they believe, or at least the expert is saying, that his statement was stuff that was public, and this is deflection, and there was exculpatory evidence in their opinion. regarding the chain of custody, which is not, I mean, I guess it's adjacent to the crime scene, how the crime scene is processed and collected, if that was what this expert was asked to do. But yeah, Ann Taylor can't really be more specific, though Ann Taylor said she was appalled by the statement and the behavior, and that their confidentiality agreement was crystal clear. I've never seen an expert talk about a case where they were hired as an expert if they weren't talking about things they testified to in trial or in court. They are generally tremendously mindful, but also, what purpose does this serve? Kohberger waived appellate rights. The plea can't be withdrawn. What purpose does this serve? It's just, those confidentiality needs some Z's, also agreed me all the time. Even with the case closed, those confidentiality agreements stay in place throughout. Those confidentiality agreements, everything that you learn in the course of being an expert, if you don't testify to it in court and it becomes public, remains confidential always, period. Those, just like attorney-client privilege, those confidentiality agreements extend beyond even the life of the client. So why is this expert giving interviews and talking? And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me in a case where nothing is going to change or be upended. Like, why choose to give the interview in a book? And why choose to undermine the defense? Because it undoes nothing. And if he's going to try to undermine the defense attorney's credibility, of course they're going to fire back. Because it also creates a ton of problems for defense attorneys. Defense attorneys in 2026 have enough problems. I've never worked as a defense attorney. However, from the defense attorneys that I know, the "excuse me, but my" insert name of AI here said this, "why are you doing that?" is keeping them plenty busy. So this is wild to me that it's coming up. It doesn't truly matter if he thinks that the plea deal was wrong to take. It does not matter. That's between Ann Taylor and Bryan Kohberger. It's not up to the expert. Even if he disagrees, he can call up Ann Taylor and be like, "I disagree." It's crazy. And again, there's process for this. And you don't end run the process. So we'll see. What it shouldn't be, though, is public. And that's why we see this statement from Ann Taylor excoriating the expert that they hired and saying that the defense is appalled by the behavior. Though it sounds like from this article that the expert is appalled by the defense. But again, when you're looking at the processes, that's not something that goes public. Elsa says going through the process wouldn't get any results. I mean, this isn't going to get any results unless he got paid for the book and pissing off the defense and not getting hired as an expert again. So there's that. But also, nothing is going to undo the plea that Bryan Kohberger took. That's just not a possibility at all. So let's take a look at our next headline here. This is from May 5th, 2026. Evidence leak inquiry from Dateline episode still active in Kohberger case. I had been wondering about this. I had been curious about this. Because I really do want to know. And this is one of those things we're probably not going to know much about. So we're going to take a look at this together. The evidence inquiry from the Dateline episode is still active in the Kohberger case. I'm not surprised. Members of the Ada County Sheriff's Office continue to investigate possible violation of the court's gag order / non-dissemination order in the Kohberger murder case. This was from yesterday, 6:07 p.m. Oh, Apple News. A criminal investigation into evidence leaks suspected of, A criminal investigation into evidence leaks suspected of violating a court-issued gag order. That is such awkward language. I understand that the media wants to be very careful not to make accusations. I understand that. However, the leaks to Dateline absolutely violated the court's order. They absolutely did. Who leaked it is a big question. Was that person covered by the court's order? Another question. But it absolutely violated the court's order. That's for certain. Who did it and were they covered by the court's order? Bigger question. But it's interesting to me that all of this is unraveling in connection with apparently last week, the new book. Because, of course, there's a new book and a new book has to have a new angle. Yeah. Not on my book list. They go on to say that they have 3 sources who have been contacted about the inquiry, which I appreciate that they are like, this is not just from one person. Northwest says Dateline was not covered by the gag order. No press was. Dateline was covered in so much as, well, let me phrase that better. Dateline shouldn't have had the information that they had. Who gave it to them is going to be the one that has a problem, not Dateline for having it. They can't really do much to Dateline. They have to go after the person that gave it to Dateline. And Lou Grace asked earlier, why can't they just ask Dateline? Because Dateline does not have to disclose their sources. And then nobody would ever give Dateline anything again. What's Dateline's goal in all of this? What's Dateline's goal in airing that episode? To have something, this is, again, my speculation, to have something that no one else has seen, that's new information, that is exclusive, and that is going to pull people in and they're going to be like, but I have to watch. Their goal is the exclusivity. We're the only one that have. We're going to be the first. We're breaking this. That's their goal. But what the goal of the person is that's giving that information to Dateline, separate question, because we don't know who did it. And a lot of people had access to this evidence. So the court has control over the individuals under its purview. Dateline doesn't have to give up its source. If Dateline gives up its source, nobody's going to give them exclusive access. Sunny asked, did the Dateline episode air yet? Yeah, it aired maybe a year and a half ago. If not more. So the goals of Dateline and the goals of those involved in the court system are not the same. But Dateline has an interest in protecting their sources, not leaking sources, and they have a legal right to do so. So somebody could try, who's going to sue? I don't even know if the court could sue Dateline. The court can't really sue Dateline. Who could sue Dateline? Maybe could the police department sue Dateline for being like, you had access to our evidence? Because Dateline's going to say, we don't have to tell you who it is. And then they're going to go through litigation. And then the court's going to say, they don't have to disclose their source. So there's no avenue to go through and try to get Dateline to disclose who did it. Dateline's like, I'm not telling you shit. And legally, they don't have to. There are very few jurisdictions that do not have media shield laws. Interestingly enough, Massachusetts, one of those jurisdictions that does not shield the media from disclosing sources. I don't have a problem with shield laws protecting outlets from disclosing their sources. But if somebody's violating a court order, then you got to go find who violated the court order because they can be punished. Could the court subpoena Dateline? Shorty, it's a great question. I can tell you how that would go. The court subpoenas Dateline. Dateline's lawyers show up with a motion to quash the subpoena. And either the subpoena gets quashed because of the reporter shield laws, the subpoena doesn't get quashed, and then it goes up on appeal and gets quashed because of the reporter shield laws. So it would not be fruitful. A lot of you are asking what was even leaked. Fair. We talked about this quite a while ago. So let's back up and do a TLDR. Thank you, lawyer. Thank you, law nerds. Because there are a lot of questions. Let's back up. It's fair. Let's give a little TLDR on the leak. Boise, Great Dane says Idaho does not have journalist privilege, but where is Dateline headquartered? Because Dateline would probably argue that the law in either New York or Los Angeles is what would apply to them. So when we covered the Dateline episode that came out, it came out pretty close in time to when we were thinking this was running up to jury trial, which also caused me some concern because how is this much information getting out? Dateline had information directly from Bryan Kohberger's cell phone, including photos, conversations, text messages, searches, and painted him in, I think, a fairly negative light based on just my impression watching the Dateline episode. They had doorbell, Ring camera, and other cameras showing the vehicle that was part of what might have been evidence in trial, but had never been in open court and was evidence. They had interviews with individuals, and that's not a problem. Based on the way Dateline reported, it seemed to me they had the entire cell phone extraction of Bryan Kohberger's cell phone. They also had quite a lot of video from the house, the exterior cameras, and neighbors' houses' exterior cameras. So all of that information was not public, was not available to anyone that wasn't part of the investigation, and should not have been on TV. So then the court absolutely lost their mind about this. There were a number of motions, and the court asked for an investigation into who could have possibly disseminated this information, and then whose kind of umbrella they fall under. Is this from state law enforcement, stateside experts, etc., or defense investigators, defense side experts? Because the state and the defense all said all of our experts have signed confidentiality agreements. This information should not have gotten out. And when it was coming out right on the foot of going into jury selection, there was a lot of concern, particularly from the defense, that this has now tainted the jury pool because it did not, in a lot of aspects, paint Bryan Kohberger in a good light. And you will have to look at how I covered this closer in time. But to best of my memory, there was stuff that came out in the Dateline episode that I don't think would have come in during trial, which is an even bigger problem. Because if it's not coming in during trial, it's really hard for the jurors to get that out of their mind. And I think there was stuff in there that would not have come out at trial. That's my impression based on my memory. When I was watching this going, I don't even think that's going to come in. It's just making Bryan Kohberger look like a creepy, odd, everyone should be weary type of dude. It was not helpful. So with that, this is where we are now talking about the leak investigation. KMB said, what could Dateline get in trouble for airing evidence that they knew broke the confidentiality clause? The confidentiality clause doesn't apply to them. So for them, it doesn't, for the Dateline perspective, it doesn't really matter. If somebody's going to give it to them, if that person violated a rule, a court order, what have you, that's on the person who gave it to them if they can find that person. But Dateline receiving it has some protections for using it because they're not covered by that court order in the same way. So with all of that, the judge started an investigation, and I had never seen a judge kind of talk about opening an investigation like this. Because the court was like, y'all need to find out who gave it. And it was started back before trial started. The court asked for an investigation to be undertaken and like a special prosecutor to be appointed. But media outlets and journalists, especially when it comes to like whistleblower protection and stuff, can take information that is given to them that might violate somebody's NDA and make that public. It's the person in the middle that is sharing that information that the media doesn't want to disclose because they want to protect their source, and here that the court wants to find out who violated their order. So hopefully that helps in that. Pueblo Native said, can they subpoena NBC's phone records and match them against their people? Probably not, because those subpoenas could be quashed because media has rights to protect their sources. The court's going to have to go about that in a different way. But again, when we are looking at who's under the authority of the court, and I will link below the episode where we covered this for those of you that did not see our coverage of that ages ago before Kohberger pled. We will, I will link that down below so you can go back and kind of review the stuff that came out in that Dateline episode and the subsequent follow-up with the court, because the court was so mad, and started an investigation. So that's where we are. The court knew that evidence that had not yet been made public, that was evidence that could, not all, but could come forward in trial, had gotten disseminated to Dateline. Dateline aired it. The court asked for an investigation to be opened. An investigation, as far as we knew it, was opened. And this is the first we've heard about it since then. So the court is, I guess the investigation is still ongoing. So the reason I'm covering it today is because this is new information from yesterday that this investigation is still ongoing. I didn't know if we would hear about this again, but I was really, really interested to see how this would all kind of play out with the violation of a non-dissemination order. It's not something in cases we've covered that we've seen often, that the court is bringing someone before the court saying, there is a non-dissemination here and a confidentiality agreement, and you violated it. Who the you is, we still don't know. Like, solve for X in this one. But that brings us back, after we've done our Road So Far TLDR, that brings us back to the Idaho Statesman saying that there are 3 people who were contacted about this, which is what I wanted to get into now that we've backed up to go forward. So It says that Matthew T, a veteran member of the sheriff's office, last listed as a detective in 2023, is investigating. In more recent years, he has worked part-time for the department as an internal affairs project coordinator, according to the sheriff's department, in pursuit of the source or sources of the alleged leak. It was a leak. It's not alleged. It was a leak. Somebody gave NBC evidence in this case that was not in court records, was not public, and was digital. In pursuit of the source or sources of the leak to NBC's Dateline, that detective has requested interviews with at least some of those who had access to the digital files that appeared in a May 2025 episode. Oh, Emily, keep reading. Two defense experts in the case told the Idaho Statesman that they had been contacted. Kraft, the fact that you can read my mind is incredible. Kraft Text Rachel said, EDB, I immediately read that name as Turduncan. Yes, I did too. I did too. He gives Beauty for Ashes, says, okay, so the Dateline info was just background info. Today we're discussing the book. We're discussing both because there is an update about the expert talking to an author for a book that Ann Taylor came out and slammed. And then on the heels of that, there is more information that this leak is still going forward. To me, they go kind of hand in hand because we're talking about information in the public that was not supposed to be public. And this is a yesterday breaking news. So, at least two defense investigators have told the Statesman that they have been contacted to be interviewed regarding the leak of evidence in the Kohberger case to Dateline. A different sheriff's office investigator also reached out last month to an attorney working on behalf of the families and two of the victims in the case. I don't think they had this digital evidence because one of the complaints from the victims' families is that they were kept pretty out of the loop. But to do a thorough investigation, you have to ask them, what information did you have from law enforcement and who did you talk to, if anyone? It goes on to say that Brent Trevitt, a forensic scientist who worked with Kohberger's public defense team, has so far declined such an interview, he said. Even though he's been told by the lead defense attorney, Ann Taylor, that he can participate, he argues this would breach a confidentiality agreement he remains bound by. Oh, Emily, keep reading. Oh my God. Let me get this right. And this is why we cover things in real time. Let me just back this up for a second. Bro gives an interview in a book and is alleged to have released non-public photographs. But then, when they want to reach out to him to do the investigation into who leaked evidence, he's saying, oh, no, there's a confidentiality agreement. Let's just take a beat to talk about confidentiality agreements. It seems that we're talking about those a lot today. It's the topic du jour. Most NDAs expressly have a clause for talking to law enforcement. Even if they don't, an NDA cannot prevent you from talking to law enforcement or the court in the course of an investigation. Like, if you have an NDA with your employer and illegal shit goes down, you can seek help from law enforcement. You can report it to law enforcement. You can't go to the New York Times about it, but you can go to law enforcement about it. An NDA cannot stop you from going to law enforcement. It cannot stop you from reporting crimes. It cannot stop you from giving an interview as a part of an investigation. He's like, what? Everything I've talked about is fine. Oh no, I'm not going to help with the investigation into who leaked the information. No, that would breach my confidentiality agreement that I remain bound by. This article's from yesterday. No, I have a confidentiality agreement. I can't talk to you about investigating who leaked this information in violation of the court's confidentiality order. Well, the court's non-disclosure agreement order, gag order. No, because I also have a defense NDA and that's still in effect. So you agree you can't talk about the case. Oh my God. Okay.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Sure. Here, sure. Mm-hmm. Does it shock me that a defense expert would not want to speak with law enforcement? No, that does not shock me. However, using the NDA or the confidentiality agreement as the shield when you're already just like, no, what? Everything I've been talking about's public. Excuse me? A great example of judicial estoppel. You can't have it both ways. I mean, it's not technically in court. It's adjacent. It's adjacent estoppel. So Turvey, the expert that we were just talking about, says that he has declined to be interviewed as part of the investigation into who leaked the information because it would violate or breach the confidentiality agreement that he remains bound by, even though lead defense attorney Ann Taylor said that he could participate. Well, right. It always seemed to me in the reading of everything that we saw that the court was looking towards the prosecution side of the V on who leaked this primarily. Could that have come from the defense side of the V? Sure, it could have. But it seemed to me at the time that the court was looking more heavily at the state than at the defense. So if the defense attorney says, yes, you can interview with law enforcement, we want to close the door on this necessary investigation. And he's like, no, that would violate my agreement. It goes on to say, Taylor separately has accused Turvey of violating that agreement by speaking publicly about protected case details and defense strategy, which he disputes. It goes on to say that Cy Ray, a digital forensic expert and former police officer, also worked as an expert for Kohberger's defense team. He told the Statesman that he has spoken with the other investigator, Tadikin? Maybe? It's going to be the best we get with Emily having no phonemic awareness. That digital forensic experts said that he has spoken with the investigator seemingly heading this investigation more than once since late last year as part of the leak investigation. Oh, and then it tells us what I said in the TLDR, probably more succinctly. Fair enough. The Dateline episode revealed previously unreleased information, including surveillance footage near the crime scene, a variety of photos from Kohberger's cell phone, and specifics about the injuries of the 4 University of Idaho students killed in the November 2022 knife attack. It seemed to me that they had Bryan Kohberger's entire cell phone extraction because they were talking about searches that he was making that probably wouldn't have come in evidence. So somebody had his whole extraction. They go on to say, let's see, they're talking about the crime. A number of people for the defense and prosecution had access to the information presented in the 2-hour special of Dateline. The expert Cy Ray said, if anyone subject to the gag order in the case was suspected of having violated it, they could be charged with criminal contempt of court. They could, among other things. It's probably the most expensive misdemeanor case in the history of Ada County, he told the Statesman by phone. Trying to investigate this was probably tough. The criminal sanctions are not going to be maybe as consequential as the career sanctions for whomever leaked this. It goes on to say that Leander James, an attorney who represents the Chapin family, and Maddie Mogan's mother and stepfather, Karen and Scott Laramie, confirmed that the Ada County Sheriff's Office recently touched base with him about the investigation into the leak. The Ada County Sheriff's Office declined to comment. An email and voicemail for Tadikin. Ta-da. Chat has suggested ta-da. We can go with ta-da. Ta-da. Received no response. Origin of the special investigation. The court's gag order prevented members of the prosecution and defense team from making public statements about the high-profile quadruple homicide case outside of court, among other things. The restriction included anyone associated with each side, including members of law enforcement. So, we have a continued ongoing investigation into who leaked seemingly at least parts of Kohberger's cell phone extraction and other evidence that the parties had in the case. We have a battle between an expert and Ann Taylor and the defense team boiling over in a very public way. And I think there is going to be a lot more about this that we are not going to see this done anytime soon. I think this is going to continue to bubble up. Why do I think this is going to continue to bubble up? Well, the defense is accusing a defense expert of violating their confidentiality agreement. That same defense expert is saying that he doesn't need to participate, according to the Idaho Statesman, in the investigation law enforcement is doing into who leaked information to Dateline because of the same confidentiality agreement. You have Ann Taylor using words like appalling. You have a book that just dropped at the end of April, and you have a judge who I don't think is going to let this go because there have to be boundaries of confidentiality within the court process, especially before jury selection. We are in a delicate balance with the courts and public access as it is. And in high-profile cases where you have leaks like this of information, particularly information that may not become evidence, you run a very real risk of tainting a jury and either having to then move a trial again or having a trial get upended down the road. And those very real concerns are something that the courts have to go after and have to take seriously. I was critical and remain critical of the Utah courts for how much they sealed. I find it frustrating. However, there is a balance that the courts have to navigate in being able to find a untainted jury pool. And the reason information that might not become evidence is so incredibly damaging is because you can't unring the bell. We saw this in the Corey Richins case. For all of you who either knew or learned after about Corey Richins throat punching her sister-in-law when they were arguing over who owned the safe, it's one of those details that did not come in trial, but knowing it makes you look at Corey Richins perhaps a bit differently. And you can't undo that. There is a whole cognitive dissonance that happens when you're in law school where you try to learn to compartmentalize things into different parts of your brain. But as a juror, that is incredibly difficult to do. And a lot of jurors will say, yes, I can be fair and impartial, but it kind of sits just with you where you're like, I'm not considering it, but also it's changed the lens that you look at the defendant through. And with how easily it is to access media and information, you might not consciously remember that you're thinking about the thing. But if the vibe is like, but fuck that person, it's real hard to walk that back for a juror who most would want to sit and look at a judge and say, yes, I can be fair in this case. Can you imagine sitting and looking at Judge M in the face and being like, nah, I don't think I can be fair. I don't want to sit here for 3 weeks. I can't. Also, humans generally want to be able to say, yes, I will be an impartial human. Yes, I will listen to this evidence with an open mind. And we are seeing courts actually get more and more protective of what information gets out before trial because it can shift the lens somebody looks at the defendant through. And of course, there are always going to be jurors that are like, I have been following this case since the beginning. I know a lot of stuff about it. This is not the case for me. But then there's others who are like, oh, I saw a headline or two. It's going to be fine. And this is the tension we see with the experts that we saw testify. And actually the same expert that testified in the change of venue motion for the Kohberger case and the Corey Richards case, and now also the Tyler Robinson case in Utah. The same expert talking about, look, you can't always ascertain the subconscious prejudice that a juror might have based on their exposure to media information in a case. Also, once somebody leaks information to Dateline, hey, buddy, well, the birds are birding today. Fred's like, my turn. Perfect. Perfect. Hi. So once the shit's out of the horse on information that's not going to come into evidence, it's really hard to unring that bell. That's where I'm at with that. And that's why courts are so protective of it. A lot of this, if it had come out after a trial or after the plea, wouldn't be as concerning. But protecting the jury process is important. Having to redo trials is a nightmare for all involved. It's expensive to the taxpayers. And the courts are incredibly protective of that process, and they should be. The balance and the tension between media access and the defendant's right to have a fair and impartial jury continues to be at odds. And I worry that in a time where we have the technology to make courts even more open and transparent, that shit like this is going to continue to make judges much, much more hesitant to make things open and transparent. And I think when things aren't open and transparent, it's harmful to the public, but it's harmful to those who live in that jurisdiction if you don't see your judges in action. I think it's a good thing that we had cameras in so many cases in Massachusetts. I'm still stunned at the stuff coming out of the courts in Massachusetts. I'm still just regularly baffled. But if I was talking to another attorney and like, hey, I heard all this is going on in Massachusetts. Yeah, this other attorney said this is all going on in Massachusetts. We would both be like, yeah, but like, is that for real? For real? Is that exaggerated? Is that hyperbole? Is that perspective? Is there more to that story? There would be questions. When you watch it play out for yourself, which you can't do if you are not either in the bar in that jurisdiction or seeing it yourself through the screen, seeing it yourself kind of eliminates all doubt. You're like, what is happening? So I get incredibly frustrated when people try to take the process into their own hands because I think it's going to end up hurting everyone. Court processes can be slow. They can be. But if courts start clamping down on access to the courts, it's not good for anyone. Because what we've seen in the cases that we've covered is that there are extraordinary jurists. There are very smart and dedicated juries. And then there are also judges where we're watching them rule going, how is this even happening? There are police officers sitting on the stand going, this investigation was done with honor and integrity, and we're all aghast. What do those words mean to you then? Because that doesn't really seem to be the way that all went. And it frustrates me because this is what's going to make judges push back on more transparency. And that's not, on my end, a criticism of Dateline. The media is always going to push for more. I've said regularly, it's why, even though we are kind of a media company up in here, I am not a journalist. I am not comfortable pushing those types of boundaries. I'm a legal commentator lawyer. I think that those boundaries need to be there. The media pushes those boundaries. I could not, and I do not want to. But it's not their job to look at somebody who's leaking information to them and go, no, don't give it to us. That's not the media's job. Their job is to push. It's the job of those covered by the court orders to adhere to those court orders. And I am going to keep an eye on all of this because I also want to know who leaked this information. Also, even though the Dateline piece, I don't think the Dateline piece was flattering to Bryan Kohberger. That does not change my opinion on the fact that that information could have come from anyone. I don't think the defense attorneys leaked it. I don't think the prosecutors leaked it. But it could have come from any team because I have seen for myself that the media can say, oh, this is the angle we're taking. This is what we're going to do. Oh no, this is how we'd use that information. And then by the time the thing comes out, you're sitting there going, what? What was that? What was that? That's not how this was presented to me. That's not how I thought that this was going to be used. What do you mean this? I thought this was going to be A, B, or C, not X, Y, and Z. Because at the end of the day, their job is to get the story out that's going to get the most views. I mean, I think it should be bringing facts, not fuckery, but also, their job is going to be getting the most eyes, not necessarily telling the story that they're telling a source that they're telling. So I'm very interested in whether this fight between the defense and one of their experts continues to bubble over and whether we ever get a resolution on the investigation into who leaked evidence to Dateline. I really very much want to know because I don't think that this is just going to go away quietly. And the fight between the expert and the defense team is really unusual. It's an odd circumstance. And even if the expert doesn't agree with what the defense team's strategy is or that Bryan Kohberger took a plea or whatever the beef is, you still can't really go to the public and talk about it when there's a confidentiality agreement about your opinions. So that's where we're at. I am surprised, truly, that this much is still going on in the Kohberger case. We'll see. You guys had a lot of questions about this, and I completely understand why. So there are a bunch of questions about, can the court do anything to Dateline? No. The intermediary is the one who was under the court's order, not Dateline. The media has different protections, and they have a different role. But also, I think everybody can see what their role is. Their role is to push for stories, to push for information. And at times, to bring things to light that should be brought to light. I do not like these types of pieces dropping before a jury is seated. I am not comfortable with that. I think it can be a huge problem for finding an impartial jury. And I worry that that is going to get worse. Then again, media is becoming more decentralized. So there's a lot of people who are just like, Dateline's still around? I didn't see it on my Shorts feed, TikTok feed. I didn't even know Dateline was still around. People still watch that? Where do you watch it? Y'all have TVs? So maybe it will get better the more and more media is decentralized because less people will see a given thing. But I worry that that will also make the media push to have more grabbing headlines to pull that attention back as media gets so decentralized. But the rights of the defendant to an impartial jury are absolute. They are a constitutional right. And that is where my tension is with these pieces coming out, because once trial starts, once a jury is seated and sworn, the jury knows not to go looking for things. And we have to trust that they're doing that. But if that piece comes out then, your jury's already kind of protected in a bubble, or they're supposed to be. And there's processes to deal with jurors who violate that. And jurors will snitch on each other so freaking fast. But there's a process to deal with that. When things come out before a jury is selected, seated, or even questioned, people living in a given area aren't thinking, oh, I might be on this jury. They're thinking, what the hell? What's happening with that? And then they might not be able to be on the jury. And I'm sure there are some that are like, oh, I don't want to sit on this trial for 4 weeks. So I'm going to find out everything I can about this case, and you're not calling me. You're not calling me into this case. I am unavailable. Because it's a pretty easy way to get out of jury duty. It's like, oh no, I've watched everything about that case. Sorry. So I worry. I am curious, and the court's role in this needs to be fairly strong to dissuade others from doing the same. Because leaking evidence that is under a court order can be career ending. Honestly, I don't have a problem with that. You don't get to just go to the media before a thing goes to trial. Because again, if the prosecution cannot convict someone without trying to convict them in the court of public opinion, they shouldn't go to trial. And the prosecution should never, ever be leaking information. Ever. It's why we just stick to court documents, because then they can be redacted. Ugh. All of this is wild to me. And I want to know who the leak is. But we're just not there yet. Jenny said, love your cap. Would love it more if it had not fuckery on the back. The other version does have not fuckery on the back. The Old English version says facts, not fuckery on the back. Not everybody can rock the not fuckery on the back, so we are mindful to have one of each. But the one with the other font, which is in my other room, has facts, not fuckery on the back. So there is one that is that version. However, that is not something you can go pick up today. The shop is a little bit under construction. So it's going to have to just wait a minute because the shop is under construction. So we're there. I'm going to see if there's any more questions about this before we shift our focus to the other Idaho case. I mean, do we fly to the other part of Idaho just because we like our EDB air bumper? Chat, you let me know. And for those of you having a difficult experience with the technology of chat, it seems that mobile chat is a little fussier today than computer-based chat. I wish there was something I could do to help with that. I do not have control. I don't know. Hi, Fred. I'm wearing black today. You show up very much. What are we doing? Do you want to just say hi to the Leonards? It's been a minute. No, you wanted to go on your way. All right. Well, actually, can we just go down? There's a lot of stuff on my desk. Thank you, buddy. That's Fred. The cats are all up on this desk today because the birds are birding. Right now it's Cardinals. Later it'll be the Blue Jays. But it's that kind of day. It's that kind of day. All right. Let's see. Expert attracted by the siren call of celebrity. I don't know. You would think that they would like their job more than talking to the public, but maybe not. Oh, down was not the vibe for you. All right. Okay. Was Courthouse Becky Boo in Idaho? No. Disgruntled moderate? No Courthouse Becky in Idaho, but somebody was there leaking information. I'm really, really surprised that we have not yet seen an opinion from the South Carolina Supreme Court. I am now waiting, and they only drop them on Wednesdays. So I guess we'll see next week. I am now going to be distracted until we actually get a Supreme Court ruling on Murdaugh, because I'm very curious what they're going to do. I think he actually has, of all the appeals we've seen, I think he actually has a pretty strong argument for South Carolina changing their standard, which would overturn the ruling on motion for new trial. But we'll see. To everyone who gifted memberships, thank you. Sarah Boone should write a strongly worded letter about this. I mean, yes. And if it was her attorney, yes. That appellate brief is one of the wildest things I've read. Fleece Hills said, I graduated master's in accounting. Congratulations. Happy graduation. And enjoy new endeavors. Enjoy your degree. Update all your signatures to account for it. Thank you to everyone who gifted memberships. I appreciate it. Are we ready to go to, more Idaho? Are we ready to do more Idaho? We'll just get extra air miles today. Why not? I like the music too. We need to talk about the TikTok psychic defamation case. Today, we're just talking about the defamation case. Remember, the last time we talked about the TikTok psychic, she had made a motion to overturn the entire judgment, saying that essentially everything was a fraud on the court. Everyone is a lying liar that lies. All of this is ridiculous and unintentionally. This was unintentional. There was no intentional defamation. And she had also filed an appeal. And she had also filed argument against the motions for attorney's fees and the rest of it. Remember, especially when we are talking about civil cases, that just because you get a verdict and a $10 million judgment doesn't mean that we're done. Liz the Perry, Florida, or Liz B the Perry, Florida. I think I got that correct. Maybe not. No, Liz Beth. Sorry. That took me 7 tries. It also reminds me of Avenged Sevenfold, which is why I picked it. It is. It also reminds me of Avenged Sevenfold. So that's absolutely why. So we have the file for appeal. Remember what needed to be done next for the appeal? We've got an update on what needed to be done next, right? Transcripts. We got an update about the transcripts. We have the professor's response to those motions regarding the attorney's fees and regarding the setting aside the judgment or verdict and judgment. We also have, I think those are the only 3. I think those are the only 3 things. So I think those are the 3 things. Let's go to all 3 of those, shall we? I need to pull up a different folder. I lost my train of thought in the middle of it. It was like, choo-choo. AJM said, EDB cookies for Banfield on Friday. Yes, I will be making cookies. It's International Law Nerd Cookie Day on Friday. Absolutely. Absolutely, we will be. I have wild grain cookies that I'm going to be making. I'm very excited about them. Let me grab my folder. What should we talk about first? Let's talk about the transcripts first, and then we will look at the professor's responses. Okay? Does that work? The TikTok Psychic is appealing the loss to the Ninth Circuit. And I just wonder if the pro se appeal is going to be better written than the appeal that we saw in Sarah Boone's case. It actually might be. So we will see. A lot of you, I was talking about Murdaugh. The South Carolina Supreme Court has not ruled on that case. They did not rule today. When they put out their docket today, his case was not on it. There has not been a ruling on that appeal yet. So no, if you are in here telling me that there's been a ruling on that appeal, I would double check where you are getting that information from, because there is no ruling. When there is, I will share it with you and we will pull up the document. There is no ruling yet from the South Carolina Supreme Court. Many believe what they're going to do, and I can understand why, but no. They put out their docket today indicating all the cases that they were putting out orders on today. His case was not one of them. So we're going to have to wait another week. They only put out their rulings on Wednesdays. So there are rumors, but there's no ruling. And until there's a ruling, there's just rumors. This is what, just for full transparency, this is what the South Carolina Supreme Court ruled on today. Whatever Gaskins versus State is, this is the only ruling today. So if there are headlines out there saying that there's a ruling, it is inaccurate. They have not ruled yet. I'll show you when they do. We'll get to see exactly what font they use on their Supreme Court documents, but there is no ruling. So, Casey Cat, there was not a ruling yesterday. There is not a ruling. There is not. So if somebody is saying there is a ruling, it is rumor. So no, they have not ruled on it. They rule on Wednesdays. This is last week. This is April. This is March. This is February. We're at the Supreme Court. We are at the rulings. This is May. No rulings. So, if there is a ruling, it will be on the South Carolina Supreme Court's website. There's a lot of rumors. Let's find out. Mojo Marcy said, I saw Nancy Grace put out something saying it was overturned. That's false. I was so confused because no one else had anything. Yeah, no, that's incorrect. It has not been overturned. Like on Wednesdays, yes, on Wednesdays we wear pink and wait for the South Carolina Supreme Court to rule on Murdaugh. Let's take a moment, because there's a lot of conversation in the chat about this. Let's just take a moment. Let's take a moment. We're going to talk about Murdaugh for a moment. We'll get back to the TikTok Psychic. We're taking a sec. Let's take a beat. Fred agrees. Hold on. We got to go back to South Carolina. We got to talk about headlines real quick. Emily, you just like the music on your bumper. Yeah, I do. Sorry, team. We had a weather diversion to South Carolina real quick. Chat. Listen. Until you see the heading from the South Carolina Supreme Court saying that there is a ruling, there is a ton of speculation. I have seen multiple people say, I have a source that says they're going to do this. There are a ton of legal commentators, myself included, who watch that argument saying it's very possible, leaning towards likely, that they will rule that way and that they will throw out Justice Toll's denial of the motion for new trial and set a new standard, because the South Carolina standard and the federal standard are at odds. South Carolina can choose a new standard for whether a defendant gets a new trial when there has been a state actor speaking to the jury. It's a pretty narrow question. It's all courthouse Becky. And if the South Carolina Supreme Court decides that they are switching standards to the more federally aligned standard, they will say that Justice Toll's denial of the motion for new trial is overturned and it needs to be reheard on the new standard. And then if it's reheard on the new standard, you will then probably see the lower court grant the motion for new trial. So if if there are headlines that it has been overturned, they are inaccurate. If there are headlines that he is getting a new trial, that is inaccurate. If there are people saying it is likely he will get a new trial, that is in line with how I see this going as well. But there are going to be a couple steps to get there. It will get listed as an opinion and order because it will get listed as both. We are going to keep an eye on it. But yes, everyone says that they have a source that is saying that they are going to rule. Until we see the opinion and order, they have not done that. And we have seen people say courts are going to do this and then they don't. So we cover court documents because until we see it on paper, it hasn't happened yet. So no, the Supreme Court of South Carolina has not ruled yet. They're not going to necessarily just give Murdaugh a new trial. I think they will overturn Justice Toll's denial if they are going to change their standard. And then the motion for new trial will get reheard. Could they, and I don't know South Carolina as well as I know other jurisdictions, could they grant the motion for new trial? I don't think they would. I think they would send it to the lower court for rehearing. So even then, I think it'll just go to the lower court for rehearing. So hopefully that helps. Chat, I'm glad we had a minute to have a chit chat. It's hard. Again, it's hard because people put out all kinds of stuff in a headline that are just not accurate, which I hate. Accuracy first. All right. Does that help? Hopefully that helps. All right. Good. I said yesterday I was waiting for an update. We are now an appropriate amount of time out to see that ruling. However, the South Carolina Supreme Court releases their orders and opinions on Wednesday. They released nothing on Murdaugh today. Check back next Wednesday. Anything between now and next Wednesday is not official. Unless they breach their own protocol and drop something. And if they do, I will put it in the app with a swiftness. And then we will talk about it. I got you. But God, I hate headlines that are wrong. Accuracy. What happened to accuracy? Facts, people. Not y'all. You're not writing the headlines. All right. Jess says, is it normal for Supreme Courts to rule on specific days of the week? Yes. They generally drop things in bunches, not day by day by day by day. So, facts over fuckery. However, I bet those headlines are getting a bunch of clicks. Yeah, I bet they're getting a bunch of clicks. Because people are like, wait, what's going on? I haven't heard that anywhere. I bet it's getting a lot of clicks. So, yep. Should we scoot back to Idaho? Should we scoot back to Idaho? Let's go back to Idaho. We were talking, we'll fix it in post, briefly about the TikTok psychic and the position of the case for the TikTok psychic and the fact that civil cases, I have to close new tabs, civil cases, even after there's a verdict and even after there's a judgment, are still just not done. Civil cases take quite a bit of time post-verdict to even start getting payment on a judgment. So let's fly back to Idaho. I really do like the music. The replay crew's going to be like, why did we fly so much today? Emily likes the vibes. Why not? Look, we're ready to live our inner rock star. I'm here for it. Hopefully you're here for it. Let's talk about transcripts, shall we? You're going to notice that the first part of this order is cut off because it has what I suspect is a home address, a personal email address, and a phone number. This is from April 20th in the TikTok psychic case because the TikToker had to order transcripts. And we were wondering what was going to happen. Well, the TikToker did in fact order the transcripts, the 30-day ordinary, which means they're not going to get them just yet. And this is what we were waiting for. Did the TikTok psychic get a waiver? No. $3,564 for the appellate transcripts. So the transcripts have been ordered, which means we can now go ahead and order the transcripts. But the transcripts have been ordered. It is not the most egregious amount. It's only 800 pages. So we did not order the transcripts until the TikTok psychic had to order the transcripts. So 30-day transcripts, 300 or 3,564. Those are going to go to the Court of Appeal. So the appellate transcripts have been ordered. So that's where we're at. Killer Cafe, if you did, go ahead and shoot us an email. Would be happy to. So, these aren't pricey. No, these are not pricey. This is actually for 800 pages of official transcripts to go to the appellate court. This is not pricey. This is on the lower end. No, this is the lower end to have those transcripts formatted. So, yep, this is on the lower end. Transcripts are expensive. Yeah, no, this is cheap. This is inexpensive for transcripts. But also it's only 800 pages. It's not the most extensive transcripts you've ever seen. So, yeah, no. Transcripts are expensive. Litigation's expensive. Transcripts are expensive, but those are when I am saying they are not expensive, I am saying they are not expensive for transcripts. My last estimate was about $5,000. Yes. Who's paying for the transcripts? The TikToker. So when I'm saying they are not expensive, that is solely in the context of 4 trial transcripts formatted for the Court of Appeal. I'm not passing judgment on the dollar amount. It is this dollar amount for those things. I imagine that transcripts for, well, again, it was only 4 days of cases. The daily transcripts can cost $2,000 a day, depending on the case. So 4 transcripts, this is on the lower end of how much that costs. So, are we ready? The TikToker had to pay $3,500 to get their transcripts, did request the transcripts on time, did pay for the transcripts. So we're there. Daily transcripts, Allison, is if you are in trial and you are asking the court reporter to get you a transcript at the end of every day, kind of like daily video. They are not formatted always exactly the way you would see them to go to the Court of Appeal. Sometimes they're a more raw format, but you get the transcript from the day. And now they're, thank you, Fred. Thanks, buddy. Thank you, Fred. And there are some programs where you get the live transcribing in addition to the dailies at the end of the day. They are generally charged by page, in addition to the amount of time and work it takes to get them done. But the cost per page kind of bakes in the time and effort to get it formatted. Thanks, Fred. Fred's like, not today, everybody. What we're not doing, why are we streaming? Why aren't we playing with Fred? It's just that kind of, Fred's like, today's a Fred day. What are we doing? What are we doing? Fred, we've got 2 more documents, buddy. What, are we bored with the Cardinals already? Are we bored with the Cardinals already? So we've got 2 more docketed items from the TikTok Psychic. We're just going to go in order of when they were filed. Are they both filed the same day? No. One's from April 23rd. One's from April 22nd. We're just going to go in order of when they were filed. That's what we're going to do. So we've got 2 replies from the professor. This is a reply in support of plaintiff's motion for attorney's fees. Remember, the TikToker has said that no fees should be granted because everything is bullshit. Essentially, everything is bullshit. So that's where we're at. Thanks, Fred. Did somebody new appear? Is the turkey back? It's a really big turkey. Is the turkey back? It's a really big. We have a tom turkey and then like 3 females that have been cruising through the yard as of late, and the cats don't even know what to do with that because they are so big. All right. Docket 159 from April 23rd, 2026. Reply in support of plaintiff's motion for attorney's fees. Plaintiff made the motion for attorney's fees. Mary Lou Craft said Pixar didn't happen. When we get to Q&A, I have, yes, when we get to Q&A, I will. This is the plaintiff made a motion for attorney's fees. TikToker objected. Plaintiff is now replying. The other motion, the TikToker made the motion and the plaintiff, the professor, is objecting. So we're doing this one first. The plaintiff professor says that she is seeking reasonable attorney fees under the Idaho Code because defendant TikToker defended the case against her frivolously, unreasonably, unreasonably, and without foundation. The professor is saying, look, this case should have resolved. It should have. It shouldn't have gone to trial. And the issues that were brought forth were not issues that needed to be heard. They were unreasonable and frivolous issues. Also, there was litigation that was brought forward that prolonged the litigation. That was part of their motion. Also, their attorney's fees were fairly low. I was surprised at the request for attorney's fees and how low it was. Truly. Trig asked, do courts outsource to have people format the transcripts? The court reporter does it, and the court reporter gets paid for doing it. So it is the court reporter or court reporters, if there are multiple in a case, that do that and get paid for that. So the TikToker's like, y'all are liars. And the professor's like, this is ridiculous. This could have all been avoided. And that's exactly what she says in the next sentence. Professor goes on to say that TikToker could have avoided all liability and the now $10 million verdict against her by simply stopping making false statements. Oh, look, it's what we all said. You could just stop. They sent a cease and desist. They said, will you please stop? And the TikToker said, I don't have to. And now we're here. So yeah, you could have just stopped. The TikToker could have simply stopped making false statements that the professor orchestrated the murder of the 4 University of Idaho students and did so because she was having an affair with one of the murdered students. She did not. It goes on to say, instead, TikToker took the professor's cease and desist letters, feigned putting them on her toilet paper holder in a TikTok video, and said that the professor and her lawyers could kiss her ass. Having lost as to liability on summary judgment because she could produce no facts supporting her false statements, having $10 million in damages awarded to the professor following a jury verdict because she could produce no facts rebutting the professor's evidence of damages, and insisted that she was able to make her false statements without any facts to support them. TikToker here simply continues to harass and malign the professor. In her evidence to avoid an award of attorney's fees, TikToker alleges fraud, presentation of false evidence, and the absence of a fair trial. Just as no facts supported the TikToker's false statements about the professor's involvement in the murders, no facts support her allegations of fraud or misconduct by the professor, the witnesses called on her behalf, or her counsel. An award of attorney's fees in the amount of $163,719 is appropriate. Thanks, Fred. Fred's like, no, we're gonna do all the things. They go on to cite what I imagine is relatively the same law that they cited before, that attorney's fees are appropriate when the losing party's position is so plainly fallacious as to be deemed frivolous, unreasonable, and without foundation. Though fallacious fountain would be, or even fallacious foundation would be a great band name. They go on to say that the TikToker misapplies the standard for an award of attorney's fees. I am shocked. TikToker does not directly dispute the standard by which this court is to assess whether an award of attorney's fees is appropriate or reasonable. Instead, she attempts to turn it on its head. She cites a different Idaho Supreme Court case for the proposition that an award of attorney's fees is not warranted because professor and her counsel pursued this case vexatiously, oppressively, or in bad faith. The vexatiousness is not on this side of the V. She then argues that the professor committed fraud throughout the litigation and that her counsel made discriminatory statements. She goes on to say, but the case, Hoffer, stands for no such proposition. Rather, the court in Hoffer awarded attorney's fees to the prevailing party on appeal. The TikToker's entire argument ignores that the professor, not TikToker, is the prevailing party. Oh yeah, she continues to do that. Consistently. She's been doing that consistently. In addition, the court in Hoffer grappled with the appropriate standard for an award of attorney's fees under the then existing version of the Idaho Code 12-121 and the Idaho Rule of Civil Procedure 54E1. At the time Hoffer was decided, only Rule 54E1 included the language allowing an award of fees only when the action was pursued frivolously, unreasonably, and without foundation. She cited case law based on a standard that has since changed. You should really take that up with your lawyer. Like that's embarrassing. Yeah, that's embarrassing. If you're citing case law that was determining a previous version of the code that isn't now currently the version of the code, that's just embarrassing. Yeah, you gotta ask your lawyer about that. They should look at the date. The lawyer for the professor goes on to point out that after Hoffer was decided, the Idaho legislature amended the code. That's how that works. The courts go, hey, legislature, this is awkward. Could y'all do that better? And then the legislature goes, oh, we didn't intend that result. We will revise the law. And then there's new law. Look at that. That's the circle of life. Look at how that works. After the decision, the Idaho legislature amended the code. And now the code also includes pursued frivolously, unreasonably, or without foundation language. It's like it's working the way that it should. The professor goes on to say, Trigg said, isn't she her own lawyer? Yes. This has long been one of my jokes on the channel, is that when somebody is pro se, they are their own lawyer, so they should ask their lawyer. It's my way of highlighting my way or the highway. No, it's my way of highlighting that it's always a terrible plan. And you should really ask your lawyer, because lawyers will know the picky little things of like, oh no, the statute has actually been revised. So what you're trying to apply is old. So yes, that's why I say it regularly in this case and others. Fred agrees. Don't you, Fred? Every time you do this to the microphone, I end up with like hair in my lip gloss. You know this, right? Okay. Go on. It's apparently going to be that type of a day today, because Fred's just like, we need all the things. So the professor goes on to highlight that this is the standard that the professor seeks to apply, because this is in fact the current legal standard. And the lawyer is applying the current legal standard. The professor's lawyer goes on to say, moreover, neither the course of proceedings in this case nor the evidence at trial supports the TikToker's assertion that the professor committed fraud or that her counsel made discriminatory statements. I wonder if we're going to hear more about the juror. Remember, the jurors, or one of the jurors, was brought up a lot in the TikToker's motion, and some of the stuff regarding that was sealed. I wonder if we're going to see it brought up in response. The professor goes on to say that the TikToker's arguments are contrary to the evidence and to the jury's verdict. That TikToker disagreed with the professor's evidence does not make it fraudulent. Oh, well, ma'am, here's the problem. See, apparently disagreement means a lot of things. And the TikToker's like, no, but it means fraud. I agree that it doesn't, but also. Do you all hear that? That's the Blue Jay. Yep. The TikToker disagrees, therefore it's fraudulent. It's like, no, I disagree. That's fraud. That's not fact. That's oppressive. No, it's just a disagreement. The lawyer goes on to say, and to the extent that she disagrees with the professor or any other witness's characterization of the professor's health conditions, she had full access to the exhibits containing her medical records and could have used them to cross-examine the witnesses. It's like there's a process for that. With the exception of Rebecca Bond, she chose not to. Oh, look, you could have cross-examined and you didn't. Should have asked your lawyer for a better strategy. The motion goes on to say, or the reply goes on to say, that Gouliard's allegations that the professor's counsel made discriminatory statements in closing equally lack support. Indeed, she cites no specific statement that she contends was discriminatory. Yeah, put it in quotes and then cite to where it is in the transcript. At trial, TikToker admitted that she had no facts to support her statements that the professor orchestrated the murders or did so because she was having a relationship with one of the murdered students. That was the evidence, regardless of what spiritual beliefs Ms. Gouliard had or did not have. Argument regarding that evidence was entirely appropriate. She has no facts. She is without facts. Finally, TikToker's insistence on arguing fraud in her opposition to the professor's motion for attorney's fees only underscores that she defended the claims against her frivolously, unreasonably, and without foundation. An award of attorney's fees is appropriate. They go on to the next heading, which is the professor's request for attorney's fees is reasonable and not excessive. I'm actually really surprised that with all this litigation and a multi-day trial, that the requested fees are under $200,000. I talked about it the first time I covered this motion. I think it is on the very, very low end of fees. And I think double that would have been reasonable in this case, truly. So I agree with the professor in that claiming $160,000 in legal fees in this case is incredibly reasonable and fairly low. The conclusion says, for the reasons set forth above, the court should award the attorney's fees. I expect the court will award the attorney's fees. I would be surprised if the court even had a hearing on this. I don't think a hearing is needed. I think that the court will just award the attorney's fees. Again, if anyone's looking at this case going, oh, you can do a federal defamation litigation to trial for $163,000, no. This is a unique case. The lawyers have been, I think, reasonable in discounting their rates to help the professor. It seems to me that the lawyers were standing well behind their client and what was being done to their client, and they have the right to do that and to reduce their fees if they want to. But it is lower than you might see in other jurisdictions, and I think probably lower than you might see in this jurisdiction. And it's really hard for a plaintiff with an attorney to go up against a pro se who has fee waivers, so they don't even have to pay the filing fees to file the documents, because they can just keep racking up the litigation. And every time they file something that has to be responded to, it just keeps racking up fees. And that can be really difficult for litigants. So with that, I think the lawyers were reasonable. I think the court will grant it. The fight is going to be in how much time, effort, and money is spent trying to ever get any money from this judgment. Truly. So let's take a look at the opposition to the TikToker's motion for a default judgment and throwing out the verdict. Remember, this is the motion that the TikToker said that all of this was basically like the Salem witch trials, and that there was a juror that was completely against her, that everything was fraudulent. Help, I'm being oppressed. They called me a witch. That motion. This is the opposition. Okay. The opposition to the defendant's motion for relief of judgment due to fraud. More than 3 years after the professor filed 2 defamation claims against TikToker and 20 months after this court entered summary judgment on both of those claims as to liability, a jury on February 27, 2026 awarded Professor Schofield $10 million in damages. Throughout the litigation, TikToker repeatedly sought to delay its outcome with multiple repetitive motions to dismiss, motions for the court to reconsider its rulings, motions to have the case reassigned to a different judge. Remember all of that? That took like 6 to 8 months to resolve, I think. It was quite a lot. All of this has been quite a lot. It was me, Fred. I just put down my water. Ooh, I got mad cat face. He was like, what was that noise? I got like the judgy eyebrows and everything. No, I'm putting on lip gloss. You keep your booty over there. Or I'm going to end up with cat hair stuck to it. I know. Thank you, Fred. Fred's like, fine. Fine. They go on to say that indeed, the TikToker's final motion to dismiss and motion to continue came just more than 2 weeks before trial was to begin. Yeah, and the judge asked the plaintiff's counsel if they could expedite their ruling. After a jury resoundingly rejected TikToker's arguments and attempts to suggest that the professor did not suffer any damages, this court entered final judgment on the jury's verdict on March 5th, 2026. 31 days after this court entered judgment, TikToker seeks a different outcome. On April 6, 2026, she filed a motion under Federal Rules of Procedure 60b-3 for relief from judgment, arguing that the professor obtained her verdict through fraud, false testimony, and misconduct during counsel's closing argument. That same day, she filed a notice of appeal. They go on to say that her Rule 60b-3 motion is unsupported by the facts and the law. It's unknown to this court. This is unknown to this court. What are you doing? It's on vibes. It is also untimely because it was not filed within 28 days as required by the Federal Rules of Appellate Procedure 4A4A 6. Can it be? Why couldn't this provision be 4A4A4? Come on. Untimely. Here's what's going to happen. Is that the court is going to, if they find that it's untimely, say that they find that it's untimely, and then also say that there are other grounds to deny it. Untimely. But the court's not just going to say it's untimely and then yeet it, because the TikToker will then file a motion to reconsider based on timeliness. So I imagine when the court rules on this, the court will make a note that it's untimely and say in any event, it's also being denied for these reasons. Because that's what the court's done consistently through this. The court does give a little bit of leeway to pro se litigants. I think this court has been incredibly patient. Either way, untimely. Your Honor, she was busy. She's also suing the IRS. So she's been busy. Legal standard, Federal Rule of Appellate Procedure 4A4A 6 requires a party to file its Rule 60 motion for relief from judgment within 28 days from the entry of judgment in order for a district court to consider the motion where the notice of appeal was filed under the Rule 60 motion, but before the motion was decided. Your lawyer would have known that. Oh no. Northwest NW says mail from Thailand takes time. It's all digital filing. It's all digital filing. Maybe the internet's slow. Sorry, I couldn't upload it fast enough. No, I don't think that's the thing either. I think, honestly, just didn't pay attention, didn't know, didn't care. I don't know. Vibes, we'll get to it. I hear you. Hello? Rule 60b-3 permits a losing party to move for relief from judgment on the basis of fraud, misrepresentation, or other misconduct of an adverse party. And see, the rule allows for it. However, there have to be facts to support it. And it feels like the motion from the TikToker was, if there's fraud, then I can make this motion. Well, I don't agree with the facts, so I'm going to call it fraud. That's not going to fly. The professor goes on to say that to prevail, the moving party must, by clear and convincing evidence that the verdict was obtained through fraud, misrepresentation, or other misconduct, and the conduct complained of prevented the losing party from fully and fairly presenting a defense. That's the standard. Clear and convincing evidence that fraud, misrepresentation, or misconduct, and that fraud, misrepresentation, or misconduct prevented the party from presenting a fair and full defense. Argument. The motion is not timely, and this court lacks jurisdiction to consider it. The Rule 60b3 motion on April 6 was filed more than 28 days after the court's March 5th entry of judgment. Thus, the notice of appeal, also filed April 6, divests this court of jurisdiction. Your Honor, the appeal's been filed. You can't even hear this. Go tell it to the Ninth Circuit. See, if this had been filed, 3 days prior, 4 days prior, the court wouldn't have lost jurisdiction. But it being filed at the same time as the appeal divests the court of jurisdiction. That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. I didn't even think about the concurrency of the filings. Then again, I'm not writing the motions. I'm just reading them. And I was so aghast by the TikToker comparing her trial to the Salem witch trials that I didn't even think about the procedural timelines. I was lost in the wait. You're saying that a juror called you a witch? What? I got distracted. It's like my Instagram yesterday was on one, and I came across a new definition for ADHD that simply said a diva has distractions. And I was like, yep, this is where I was at. I was so distracted by the I'm being oppressed that, and the juror called me a witch, that I just completely forgot to think about the first step, which was the procedures of all of it. But of course, that's why we read the other attorney's motions. We're just here to be like, what are we doing? But yeah, a diva had distractions. We got completely distracted. Okay. They go on to say, this is the professor, that the Rule 60 requires that a motion for relief from judgment be filed within a reasonable time and no more than a year after entry of judgment. Because TikToker filed a notice of appeal the same day as the motion, the timeliness of the motion is determined by the federal rules of appellate procedure and the federal rules of civil procedure. This is why you need lawyers. Look, I'm a criminal attorney. I have worked in civil. I have worked for judges. I've done a lot of different things. But at heart, I will always look at the facts first and then back up. And when you are looking at appellate lawyers, they are looking at process generally first and then backing up and looking at the facts, the story, the this, the that. They are looking at process, procedure, timeline first. My brain always goes to what's the story first. And I love that they have taken it back to the top, because again, if a judge can yeet on procedural grounds, they will yeet on procedural grounds first. Courts will kick the can down the road at almost every opportunity, especially when we're looking at appellate courts. If appellate courts do not have to determine an issue of fact because they can determine an issue of procedure, they will determine the procedure first. Lawyers use the code to their advantage. And this is exactly what we're seeing. Hey, Your Honor, so it says that you have a reasonable time within a year. However, funny that when you file both together, it changes the rule because of the way the filing went. So now it's untimely. She cites the appellate rule 4A4A6 that says the effect of a motion on notice of appeal if a party files in the district court any of the following motions under the federal rules of civil procedure and does so within the time allowed, the time to file an appeal runs for all parties from the entry of the order disposing of the last such remaining motion. 1, for judgment under Rule 50B. 2, to amend or make additional factual findings under Rule 52B, whether or not granting the motion would alter the judgment, and then going down to 6. For relief under Rule 60, if the motion is filed within the time allowed for filing the motion under Rule 59. On procedure, it's going to get yeeted. Wolf Chiara says it feels like an unfair rule. It prevents gamification of jurisdiction. So this is not unknown to appellate attorneys. This can be challenging if you are not an appellate attorney, but it prevents people from trying to gamify their appeals, and then it prevents you from having a ruling in one court that impacts what's going on in another court. And again, the TikToker did not have to file notice of appeal. She did not have to file this either. These were her choices. So she made those choices. So because, Fred, we're talking about the rules of federal appellate procedure. We are all in the law. Fred's like, I don't care. So when the notice of appeal is filed, the appellate court has this. And because they were filed at the same time, it shifts the timeline, which it says in the rule. But again, trying to represent yourself on appeal is not a great idea. However, the TikToker chose to do that. So that is their choice. So I understand that the rules of procedure can feel pretty nuanced. But again, it's why when you're getting into appeals, lawyers that work in appeals regularly are the lawyers you need. And it seems that the professor is going to also be working with their same attorney, who probably has attorneys that do appeals within their firm. Continuing on, the professor's attorney says here, TikToker plainly did not file her Rule 60B3 motion within 28 days after the entry of the judgment, the time allowed for filing a motion under Rule 59. She did so 31 days later, and she filed her notice of appeal the same day. Thus, her appeal divests this court of jurisdiction to hear the motion. We're in the appeals court now, Your Honor. So you can't even rule on this. And the appeals court is going to say, yeah, no, sorry, that was not filed within the time. We'll see what the court decides to do. Either way, the motion doesn't have sufficient grounds. It's not as if the variance between 28 days and 31 days is going to deprive anyone of their rights. There's no grounds on this. Either way. The professor's motion or opposition goes on to say where a party does not file a Rule 60B motion within 28 days of the entry of judgment and then files the notice of appeal, the Rule 60B motion is ruled on such that the appeal is then pending. Hey, if you knock that off of my desk, it's going to be a problem for me. So I've not paid attention to Fred well enough, and now chaos is going to ensue. The you must pay attention to me type of chaos. The, you haven't paid attention to me? What can I knock off of your desk that you would pay attention to? Right, cat chaos. We're in full mischief managed mode today. The professor goes on to say that the TikToker has taken none of the steps necessary to either file this in a timely manner or file this before the motion of appeal so it still has jurisdiction. They go on to say that the TikToker has neither inquired of this court if it wishes to entertain the motion, nor moved the Ninth Circuit for remand of the case. Her appeal remains pending. Thus, her Rule 60 motion is untimely, and this court should not consider it. In sum, in light of the notice of appeal, the motion's untimely. The court lacks the jurisdiction to consider it, must therefore deny it. Then they're getting to the grounds. So, hey, this is the procedural grounds. Now we're moving into the factual grounds. This is kind of the arguendo of it, because you can never just base your argument on procedural grounds, this is untimely, throw it out. You have to then argue the other part of it too. So this is the arguendo. Even if this court were to consider the motion, then it should not, and it should not, the court should deny the motion. It lacks merit, period. In the Rule 60b-3 motion, TikToker points to no evidence, let alone any clear and convincing evidence, that the professor's verdict was obtained through fraud, misrepresentation, or other misconduct. No, her entire motion was, I hated it, and somebody called me a witch. Was her entire argument. I mean, there were a lot more words in it, but synthesizing it. Nor did any of the conduct she complains of prevent her from fully and fairly presenting her defense. To the contrary, she simply disagrees with the jury's verdict. Yes, because I hate it is where we're at. She simply disagrees with the jury's verdict and the inferences and conclusions the jury drew from the evidence presented at trial. That is insufficient to meet the standard under Rule 60b-3. TikToker first Hi, Fred. Hi. I was in the middle of a sentence, buddy. Hi, I know. Where are we? Sorry. The TikToker first argues that the professor committed fraud by falsely claiming that her damages exceeded $75,000. She argued this all the way back at the beginning of the case, and the court said no. She calls this Professor Schofield's foundational lie. She alleges that Professor Schofield attempted to assert 10 years of professional damages through the testimony of her expert, the other Rebecca. Remember, we had the Tribeca witnesses. Gouliard also argues that Dr. Tallant's testimony was undermined by the testimony of her dean, Sean Quinlan, and by the testimony of Kim Ritter. The arguments are wholly without merit, the professor says, and reflect the TikToker's disagreement with the jury's verdict. The jury heard all of the evidence that the TikToker now alleges disproved the professional damages. Right. And disregarded the inferences and conclusions she asked them to draw from it, as reflected in the jury's award of compensatory damages. TikToker next alleges that the professor fraudulently filed medical records and bills to misrepresent damages, and that her treating mental health provider lied under oath. TikToker both mischaracterizes the record and ignores her own failure to contrast the evidence presented by the professor at trial. Professor's medical records were exhibits at trial. TikToker had access to them. Right, in discovery, she had discovery. She could have just used the discovery. She didn't. TikToker had access to them, could have rebutted them. Moreover, the testimony was unrebutted that all of the professor's physical conditions were, I always will get exasperated. Exasperated? No. Yes. Exaggerated? We're going with that. By or began only after the TikToker published her false statements. Right. You can have things going on underlying it, and the stress of what's happening makes it worse. You're entitled to damages for that. And it sounds from the professor's side that that's what they believe the evidence showed, is that after the TikTokers publishing of false statements, the conditions were made worse. From this unrebutted evidence, the jury concluded that TikToker's false statements damaged the professor. The evidence was equally unrebutted that the professor's mental health conditions arose only after the TikToker published false statements about the professor, and would not stop when professor sent a cease and desist, and would not stop when a different person was arrested, charged, and pled guilty to the murders. The evidence was also unrebutted that Ms. Bond diagnosed the professor with PTSD that was caused by the repeated false statements in the published TikTok videos, that the professor orchestrated the murders and did so because she was having a relationship with one of the murdered female students. TikToker spent more than 2 hours cross-examining that witness, Ms. Bond, suggesting that Ms. Bond's diagnosis departed from the DSM-5. Oh, we knew that that was coming based on the motions. They say that TikToker's cross-examination and ongoing assertion that Ms. Bond did not follow the criteria of the DSM-5 does not mean that the witness lied. To the contrary, Ms. Bond remained firm in her diagnosis and its cause. TikToker's characterizations of Bond's testimony in her Rule 60b-3 motion overstate and misstate the testimony. And then we're going to hear about that. Oh, Fred, you have glittered me with the cat fuzz. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Thank you, Fred. It's just streaming is dynamic. They go on to say that most significantly, the jury heard both Miss Bond's testimony regarding her diagnosis and Gouliard's lengthy and detailed cross-examination. The jury determined that TikToker's statements damaged the professor and awarded compensatory damages for each defamation claim. Right. Finally, TikToker contends that the professor's counsel in her closing asked the jury to discriminate against TikToker because she is a psychic and to punish her on behalf of all psychics. I imagine that most psychics would agree with punishing the TikToker, but I don't think that's what was asked for in closing arguments. I imagine most are like, we don't claim her. This is not how this works. Don't do any of this. This is not how it goes. We don't do any of it yet. No. However, I can't imagine that that's actually what was said. It goes on to say that, to the contrary, counsel argued that the jury should look at the facts and award both compensatory and punitive damages in part because TikToker had admitted repeatedly that she did not believe she needed facts and that she knew she had none. Right. The audacity. And telling the jury, she said she didn't have any facts and she said she didn't need any, and she's just accusing, the professor of murder, is not tolerated. And damages should follow. Right. If this court determines it has jurisdiction, so this is again the arguendo, right? If the court determines they have jurisdiction to consider the Rule 60b-3 motion, this court should deny it. It reflects only TikToker's disagreement with the decision of the jury. She does not carry her burden by clear and convincing evidence. It goes on to say, for the reasons set forth, we ask the court to deny it. But they are asking for the denial on two fronts. They are saying, look, first of all, it's untimely and jurisdiction has shifted to the Court of Appeal. But even if the court disregards the procedural bit, on the factual bit, she has not met her burden. There are no facts. She simply doesn't like it. Your Honor, it's fraud because I hate it. It's fraud because I disagree. It's fraud because I don't see it my way. My way or the highway. Right. And that is where we are for today. I don't know how many more motions we are going to see with regard to the TikTok psychic case, but we are nowhere near the end of this. The briefing is complete on the motion for attorney's fees. I think the court should award the attorney's fees to the professor. They are not overwrought. It's $163,000 of attorney's fees and costs for going to trial and litigating this for more than 3 years. A lot of those litigation costs were exaggerated by the filings that the TikTok creator made. And that briefing is complete, so that's ripe for a ruling. I don't think the court's going to have a hearing on that. I think the court will just rule on it, and I think we will see the attorney's fees being granted. The motions are not complete as to the defense's motion, essentially to dismiss again. The TikToker has the opportunity to reply to this motion for relief of judgment, and then it will be ripe for an order. I do not think the court will ask for oral argument on these or a hearing. I think the court's just going to rule on the pleadings and then we'll decide. But the appeal is also going to be moving forward. We've now seen the request for the transcripts, and that met the deadline. So on the appeal side of the defamation case, we are going to start seeing, where was the deadlines on that? I think I pulled that up last time. Let's just pull that up one more time so we have an eye on those deadlines on appeal. The transcripts have been ordered as required. Let's see. So the appellate transcript was due on, or the order was due on April 20th. And then we had the 30-day order. So the transcript should be due back to the court on May 20th. And then the appellate opening brief is due June 29th. Now, of course, it can be filed before that, can't be filed after that. If it's not filed on that date, the Court of Appeal can close the appeal. So it would need to either be filed or an extension of time, which is something we're well familiar with in the Sarah Boone case. We saw innumerable extensions of time requested. But given that the TikToker was present at trial, so it's not as if she needs to familiarize herself with the case, I don't know if the court would grant an extended request. A lot of the times when you see those requests for extensions on appeal, it's from counsel that is coming into the case new and has excessive amounts of information to review. This case has, what are we at? We're at like 160 docket items, which isn't a lot. For, by way of example, this case has been going on since 2021. Is that when it was first filed with docket number 1? I think it was 2021. Was it 2022? Let me take a look. Yeah, December 2022. So at the very end of 2022. And there's only 160 docket items. It's only 800 pages of transcripts. That's not that much. When we are looking at the juxtaposition there, the last civil case we talked about at the very top of the show today, the lively Wayfarer Baldoni at everybody, is on docket number 1,431. And most of those docketed items are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages long. So this is a fairly brief docket. It is not a 20,000 page transcript. So I don't know if they would even grant an extension of time. So June 29th. We will be back. Well, that's like right around DCI opener, isn't it? Of course it is. It's a little after. I think it's right after DCI opener. Good. Good. We can cover it after the DCI opener. So we will be keeping an eye on what in the world this appellate brief is, because the bar on appellate briefs has shifted this weekend or this week. What day is it? Wednesday. The bar on appellate briefs has shifted because that Boone appellate brief still is making my brain buffer from yesterday. We have seen, Dara, not a word of an appeal bond. We have seen nary a word of appeal bond. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I am going to keep an eye on this. We've got one more, unless the TikToker files another motion, we've got one more order that we'll see. And then this should just shift completely into the Court of Appeal. And then that will take a little bit longer to progress. But I'll keep an eye on it. Don't worry. We'll be covering it. I am very curious how this appeal is going to go. And then we will take a look at this trial transcript together. We have some other trial transcripts that we'll be getting to at some point because, well, there's just a lot of litigation going on. There's a lot of litigation going on, but it's May. So Emily's tolerance for any new information, my brain is kind of full because May is busy, absolutely busy. Let's get to a few questions, and then I have got to scoot, y'all, and then I got to figure out what Fred's deal is. Fred is like, why is the woodpecker outside. Because why not, Fred? It's just that kind of a day. Look, it's not raining any longer. It's been a stormy day. So let's real quick get to questions. Oh, Lawnards, I said I was going to do some gifted memberships. For those of you who have hung in to the end, I said I was going to do some gifted memberships. Let me see if I can do that because it wasn't pulling up on the window I had pulled up for chat because chat was being the chat function because otherwise somebody listening on background will be like, what's popping off? The chat function was being wonky for me as well. So I was having some functionality issues with that. So let me see if I can pull that up without also getting any feedback from hearing me. We only got a little bit, just a little bit. We heard just a little bit. I'm going to do these in 2 groups because I think that works best. So we're going to do these in a couple groups. So do not worry. There will be a couple groups, but we'll have some gifted memberships. Welcome new members. To everyone else who gifted memberships today, thank you so much. We will have a members only tomorrow. As I said at the top of the show, I am not exactly sure what time that will be because we have some internet things happening at my house and I'm not sure exactly what time they're happening. So I'll keep you posted. Let's get to questions. Don't worry, we'll get to turkey pictures. We will do that. Don't worry, I'll have to pull that up on the back end real quick. So let's get to chatting. I know. So much fun. Mel A. Bickett asked, when will we cover the victims' families versus the Kohberger University? It is on my docket. I do not know when we will cover it. Things are fluid, but I have it on the docket. We will at some point. It's not going to go anywhere fast, but we will get into covering it. It's just going to take me a little bit. As I said, I think at the end of last month and consistently through the beginning of this month is going to be, it's just busy in the EDB life, and jumping into new cases when also everything is busy is not always easy. So that it's on the docket. I do not know exactly when we will get to it. Will we get to it? Yes. When? Unsure. Also, if I said when we would get to it and then something else happened and it got pushed, then I would be answering questions forever of, you said we were going to do this time. So I do not know. I do not know because things will continue to happen. I am still anticipating that we will at some point soon have a ruling in South Carolina. So I am almost done. Buddy. I know. I am almost done. Fred needs something today. He's just like, today is one of those days. It's just one of those days. Okay. Yes. We're going to answer a few questions and then we're going to go because Fred is fretting. Fred just needs all of the human interaction today. Okay, buddy. Are we good now? All right, maybe we got a few minutes. Fred's he's not going anywhere. Lucky asked, could the defense have leaked for a mistrial? I do not think the defense attorneys would willfully violate a court order. I do not see defense attorneys doing that. It would very, very much surprise me if they did. But it also, because the trial hadn't started, it wouldn't give a mistrial. It might have given them some more time. It might have delayed the start of trial, but they had already gotten their motion to change venue. I don't see where there would be any benefit. I honestly don't see where there would be any benefit to anyone on that. But obviously someone disagreed. So I don't think that would have benefited them. I don't see how that would have helped. So we will see. K-Dog said, celebrating my 40th birthday today with a membership And for a super chat, happy 40th birthday. 40 is amazing. Have the best time. We love our May birthdays. It's so fun. Oh, fluff. Sorry. Fred is fluffing. Happy birthday. It is also my friend Ava's birthday. It's actually my bestie's kiddo. So maybe my niece is more appropriate. Happy birthday. Aurora said, flying across the country, met another Lawnard because of my newest Lawnard hoodie. Love it. Thanks to this awesome community. That is one of the things we love so much about being able to see the Lawnards in the wild is that we've got the Lawnards in the wild in their merch. It makes it so easy to say hi to each other. It's like if you're carrying around one of your favorite books and somebody's like, oh my God, I love that book. I love that book. Mullen's stream said, is the turkey back? My brain to the popular JT tune. Is the turkey back? Them other chickens don't know how to act. Yeah, let me pull that up real quick so I do not forget because, turkey. Also, for those of you having technical difficulties with chat today, I have too. I know. It is a whole thing. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Okay, Fred, I hear you. Fred is just like, what are we doing today? Fred has opinions today. Fred's like, what we're not doing today is streaming. What I don't want to do today is stream. We don't want to stream. I don't want to stream today. It's just one of those days. Huh, Fred? Fred's like, no streaming. Playing with Fred. It's a playing with Fred day. Only playing with Fred today. I see you, buddy. I see you. Hold on, let me just grab this. I'm trying to grab photo because just grabbing my phone is not a reasonable solution because it won't show up well. Come here, photo. Just go where you're supposed to go. Just go where you're supposed to go. Excuse me. I have been fluffed by the Fred, and I am still trying to grab photo. Why? Maybe I can't do it from that screen. Sorry, chat. I was not adequately prepared for the turkey pics, but I am now. We got the turkey pics. All right. Put that up there. Look, this is one of 4 of the turkeys. But look at this. Look at this dude. This is outside my office window. It's a big turkey. A big old turkey. Also, this bird was dropping the things that they didn't love. And the turkey was just like, perfect. They were working together. So this is outside of my window. So they were working together. Even though the turkey does also treat the bird feeder like a piñata and just kind of whacks it and then the seed falls down. So they were working together and having the best time. But yeah, we have some fairly large turkeys. We love the turkeys. They're a lot of fun. They're huge though. They are quite large. But a few years ago, chat, can I beg the chat's indulgence for one moment? Can I beg the indulgence for one moment? There, I'm going to see if I can find this real quick. Because a few years ago, there was like a bird play date in my yard that was wild. This is same turkey. Let me show you another view of said turkey. Emily, are we just bird watching vicariously? Yes, apparently. So Turkey Tom, one feather Turkey Tom. Tommy, I think Bryan was calling him Tommy One Feather. Either way, this is Tommy One Feather and the ladies. Same turkey, but in like full turkey mode. Yes, you can hear them in the yard. Yes, they make the noises you think they do. Yes, it's hilarious. But Turkey Tom, or One Feather Tommy, I think is what Bryan's calling him, is just the sassiest little turkey. But I think it was maybe 2 years ago that all of the juvenile turkeys were in the yard, like crossing through the yard together. And it was one of the wildest things, like literally and figuratively, that I have ever seen. So we will regularly have, because there's woods by my house. There's quite a lot of protected land behind the house. So there is a good habitat for the birds. We always try to make sure that the things we have in our yard are also supportive for the birds. But all the littles were walking around in the yard. I'm hoping that we will have them again this year because I love them. But look at this. Look at all the littles. All of the littles. It was like 2 mamas and all of the littles. It was it obviously wild, but it was so cool. It was just so cool to see all of the littles. So, yes, all of the habitats where we live, which I love. So it was very fun, but they made the little turkey sounds. It was just very, very little. It was so cute because the big ones are loud. The littles are not quite as loud. So those were the littles a few years ago. Loved it. And then the cats just sit at the windows and don't know what to do. So they just sit there and are like, what are we doing? Oh yeah, no, there's a whole point formation here. So this is adult female turkey 1, adult female turkey at the point 2, and adult female turkey 3. So the 3 female turkeys had all of the littles in that kind of triangle following them. So it was a whole group. They had it sorted. The mamas had it down. And then there's still some trailing behind that. It was wild, but I loved it. But they definitely all hang out together. And they have a great look at that formation. They know if something's coming. They know if anybody's coming for the babies. They got it. So, Emily, what are we talking about? Birds. Yeah. We're there. I love it. I love the wildness, but also that's what one of the things Fred has been keeping an eye on today is the big old turkeys. But super fun. They are huge. It's wild to see them in activated mode versus non. Like the fluffed mode is so crazy. It's wild. It's wild how big they can get to when they fluff up. I love it. No peacocks around here, but I loved, there are some places in Southern California where there are wild peacocks. They're loud too. No peacocks around here. Lori, we do not specifically feed the turkeys, but we do have how much do you want me to talk about my garden? We do try to pick native plants that are supportive to the wildlife. We also do have feeders. And so there are birds that like all different things in the feeders. It's hilarious because they will pick out the things they don't like and drop them. And then different birds will come through and grab them. So there's plenty for them to eat. But no, we don't specifically. We do put out food for the birds depending on the time of year, but we do not specifically feed the turkeys. They've got plenty. But yes, we do very much try to plant things that are going to be supportive to all of the bird life and the bug life. So it all has its own little ecosystem. So they have plenty of things to eat. Obviously, they're not our Tommy Turkey One Feather is doing just fine. And this is from a distance, doing just fine. Scares the cats, but doing just fine. So we try to make sure that all of our gardening is kind of rewilding a little, which you'll see in the yard here, that there is mostly clover and stuff. I like it. So that is always part of our goal, is to make sure that we are taking care of of our yard so that all of the animals, well, we are very much happy to see them. So we make sure that the yard supports that as well, because we can. We are talking about a bird cam. We're working on it for sure. We also have at times one particular massive turkey vulture that just hangs out. Those things are, the wingspan on those are wild. Absolutely wild. I love it. I love seeing everybody in the backyards. I love it so much. I love it so much. It makes me absolutely happy. I couldn't be happier. Well, actually, yes, I could. Emily, more acres? Yes. I love it also. Anyone else in that realm of like, hey, I love this thing, so more is good? Right. It's like, I love doing this, but also there could be more space, more garden. I was talking to Epic Gardening. I'm like, I would love to have you help with some of our own, because we've focused very much on like native plants and stuff that works. I would love to very much more focus on not just herb garden, but expand it. And he's like, we will have to talk. I'm like, we will have to talk. I love it so much. Also, I don't want to have to like mow things. So I love the yard that all works in harmony. It's fun. I also love being out in the outdoors. I love the seasons. I love the weather, even when it's spicy. I just love it, love it, love it. Makes me super happy. And it amuses my cats, which amuses me. And my kids are just like, oh, there's turkeys in the yard. Oh, there's deer in the yard. Oh, is that a crane? Are those hawks? I love it so much. Yes. Artie, yes, we're at Birds Are So Fun age. Yeah, birds are so fun. I want to learn how to make my own bread. I learned how to make my own pasta. We are at the Birds Are So Fun age. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I love how alive it makes everything feel when you just hear the bird song all day long. It makes me super happy. So that's that's our turkeys are distracting. I was on a call, was it Monday? And I was just like, sorry guys, the turkey is literally like looking, because the turkey can stand up and look into my window. The turkey was like literally outside of my window. And I was so distracted. A diva has distractions in the form of birds. So anyway, we're a few more questions, but yes, I am at I love my outside habitat. Love it, love it, love it. A lot of you are asking about the Banfield motion today. I have not seen any reports about the Banfield motion today. We'll talk about it Friday. If I get an update on the court docket, I will put it in. I mean, the courts, it's the docket might update at the end of the day with the ruling on the motion, because it's one of those motions that would have been ruled on in court today. But we'll update it before Friday. It does not change the sentencing going forward on Friday. The sentencing's going forward on Friday. I intend to be pretty close in real time. So Friday, today was a later day. Tomorrow, I'm not sure what time we're streaming, depending on work that's getting done at the house. Friday, we are going to be streaming for the Banfield sentencing. We're going to be making cookies. We're going to be sitting here with our Kleenex, and I will send out an app notification when we are going into the victim impact statements, when we are done with the impact statements, because then there will be a lawyer argument, and when we have, as best we can, when we have Judge A's pronouncement of sentencing, because I want to hear what Judge A says. And I know that a lot of you, if you are at work or in an area where listening to impact statements that are going to just be incredibly heart-wrenching and sad doesn't work in your morning and you need to be replay crew on that, we will send out app notifications for that. Tome Worm said the Merlin app is amazing. I use the Merlin app. I love the Merlin app. Love the Merlin app. Kathy is plum crazy. Emily, do you get hummingbirds? We get some hummingbirds. We are redoing our closer gardening that's going to have some more hummingbird friendly plants. We don't get a ton of hummingbirds yet, but we're working on it. USMC for Life said celebrating 1 year clean and sober today. So happy birthday of sorts to you as well. Congratulations. And you've got this. And congratulations. I think celebrating how far you've come is great. I think continuing to celebrate is great. And you are among many in this community that are on a sober journey with you. So you are well ensconced with law nerds who are there with you. Absolutely. Hydrated, well hydrated. Let's see. We had a couple of other questions. I think I answered the questions about Dateline. EDB, the Gonsalves family started a nonprofit. I think that's amazing. A lot of families do channel the worst thing that's happened to them into helping others. And I always like to see it. I think it's always helpful to the families to have that outlet. Maren, Emily, are you going to react to the Steph Diggs trial? I didn't watch the trial. It is May. I definitely don't have time to, unfortunately, take in a new trial. I know it was pretty quick, so I have not had a chance. If we want to go back and watch it together, that might be something we can do after graduation, but I can't react to it because I haven't watched it. If I'm not here with y'all, I have been doing all of the things to get my kiddo ready to graduate and go to college because we don't have a summer to do that. So when Travis graduates, we need to be ready for a full DCI tour and college to start. So we have less than 20 days. We have less than 20 days to get him completely ready to go on tour and then go to college. So when we're not here, I'm doing all of that. So I don't have as much time as I do in other months. But if it's something we want to circle back to, we can always talk about it. We have lots to circle back to. Tomorrow, let's see, anything else? I think all of you are like, love the cat cameo. I appreciate it. I have not set my DCI schedule yet, but I will keep you guys posted when I know exactly where I'm going to be and when. Music to My Soul said, have we settled the debate of whether eating slices of cookie cake will qualify as a big cookie for Friday? Yes. I think slices of cookie cake absolutely are a perfectly wonderful way to celebrate Law Nerd International Cookie Day on May 8th, because it's now Law Nerd International Cookie Day on May 8th. I also think that you can be cookie adjacent. I think an ice cream sandwich made with cookies counts. I think we could argue that maybe a chocolate chip muffin, if that's more your vibe, is cookie adjacent enough that it is also all in the spirit of the things. So we will see. SF asks, can you cover the Laura Owens trial at the end of, I do not know the case. If it is going to be the beginning of August and it conflicts with DCI finals, then that is going to be a no-fly zone. I very much try not to start trials when I know I'm going to be missing days, and the beginning of August is DCI finals. So for the summer, my trial schedule is going to have to maneuver around family times. So if that goes to trial then, if it's something we want to look at, then we will see if we can peek in after the first week of August. Emily is not available like the first 2 weeks of August, like at all. Because it's DCI finals. So what you will be hearing from me the first week of August is, oh my God, you guys, the Cavaliers. That's what we're going to be hearing. Did you guys see how well Rhythm X did in indoor drums this year? Right. That's where my brain is going to be. So my brain is going to be, well, my brain and my body are going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium for the first week of August, talking about drumline. So for those of you who are like, Emily, DCI, what is DCI? My kid is a performer in the Cavaliers Drum and Bugle Corps. DCI is, well, Flow Marching and DCI both refer to it as the Major Leagues of Marching Band. It is the marching performance arts highest level of performance, and it takes over the summer. If you've seen some of my members only, you will see it. It is just an incredible, if you like marching band, they are incredible field performances, but They compete all over the United States from June to August. My kid performs. My kid's getting ready to go to college. Oh, I can't talk about it. Nope. No crying till after graduation. So I will be spending as much time as I can seeing my kiddo. Nope. Can't talk about it because I love watching him perform. And for those of you that have followed a little bit of my journey into law school and the rest of it, why are we talking about this, Emily? This is a terrible plan. It's fine. We're already there. It's fine. You'll know that I played college water polo and got injured. And that is something that has definitely shaped me on the, I don't even know if I can say it without starting to cry, that has shaped me on the you never know when your last performance will be your last performance. And so as my kiddo performs, I am going to be at every performance I can reasonably be at because you never, ever know. And, ooh, the tears. See, this is why May is May, because we are too close to graduation for me to talk about anything emo. But when I played my last water polo game, I did not know it was my last one. And when I tried my last trial, same, because I also got injured before I retired. But when I tried my last trial, I also did not know it was my last one. And those experiences have always really shaped the you never know. You never know. And though if you have not competed in the marching arts, this might sound weird to you, but the injury level at the DCI level is not something to underestimate. And you never know. So, when there are things that come up, particularly in the summer, I always do my best to navigate both the fact that I want to cover all the things with you because I love doing this. I love doing this with you guys. But also making sure that I give myself time and space to do the family things as well. Because I never want my kid to get injured. He was the first kid in his corps to get stitches last summer. I'm aware of that. And he has had some injuries. And you just never know. So I want to make sure that I'm able to do both. Because once again, you never know. So especially the first week of August, at least I know that date. Also, trials continue all the time. So I try not to plan my life around the trials because they're not mine. There are some trials that we will definitely move things out of the way for. And there are some trials that we will cover as they happen. Some trials we will cover on delay as we've done. But I moved a lot of my life around when they were my trials. And I don't have that kind of control at this point, but I can control when we cover it. And that works for me. And oftentimes that works for y'all too. So it's one of those things that I'm going to balance, but I have a very hard time starting trial. You're going to be shocked by this. Chat, just right? I have a very hard time starting a trial and either not watching every single second of it or having to skip days. It's like binge watching something. We need to just go through all of it. So hey, we'll start a couple days here and then I'll be traveling and then we'll get a few days there makes me feel horrible. I feel like I am always missing something. I feel like I'm always behind. I feel like I am pulled in a million different directions. So when I know that I've got family commitments, I'm not going to start a trial that's going to butt up against those family commitments because it is too hard for me to navigate. And I feel like my attention's being pulled in different directions. And when I'm here with you guys, except today with Fred, what are we doing? When I'm here with you guys, one of the reasons we have a no breaking news rule is because when I'm here, I don't have other things I don't have other feeds up. I am locked in with you guys talking about what we're talking about. If I constantly was looking for like what was going on, what was next, if something was being filed in a case, I imagine it would feel like if we were talking together at a party, restaurant, whatever, and I was constantly looking past you to see what was going on next. Have you ever had those conversations? I hate that. Like I am locked in with y'all when I'm here. And so when there's breaking news, it's really hard for me to shift I'm locked in on this, and then we need to shift to a new thing. And I never want you guys to feel like I'm going, oh, what's the next thing? Is something else going on over there? I'm locked in with y'all. And then when I'm with family, I'm locked in there. So making sure that because that's the way that's how I feel best too, is when I can just give the full attention to the thing that I'm doing. And so that's really where I try to find that balance. And I really hate that feeling of like, I can't be fully focused because I'm constantly waiting to see what's going to happen. And so that's why we do a no breaking rules in the chat, because a diva has distractions. Today they're Fred. Buddy, I prefer to be present where I'm at and not worry about what's next, which is why if we are ever somewhere chatting, you will generally not see me looking to see what else is going on. I'm here. So with that, I'm going to go see what Fred needs. Law nerds, I will see you tomorrow. Let me check that docket real quick. Emily, you just said you don't do breaking news. I know, but we're wrapping up. I feel like we've finished our topics for the day. We've gotten our work done. Now we can chat with our friends in class because we've gotten our work done. Let me just go check the docket real quick. I don't have the link to the docket pulled up, so I'm just going to pull it up. But I like to keep you guys also in the loop on the decision making because that's how I think through things. And I hope that that's always helpful, knowing how I think through things. Also, when I say, hey, we're going to cover this trial, but we'll skip a few witnesses, how well has that ever gone? Because I'm like, well, shit, we're locked in. Sorry, everybody. We're now here for 7.5 hours. My bad. I've just learned this about myself. I don't do that well. I either need to, we're kind of all or nothing on that. Truly, I don't do, oh no, we'll just kind of summarize. Never. It's like, oh no, I want to know what they say. I don't want to miss something. So then we're just in it. I pulled up the wrong link. Let's see. Yep. What are we doing, Fred? What are we doing? I'm trying to find where this, that's not what I was looking for. This is being unusually pesky. So I will look and see if there's anything on the docket and then send it in the app in just a minute. So we will be doing that. So, law nerds, I'm going to see what Fred needs because it's something. I am going to update you in the app if I see a ruling on that. We're going to be in a members only tomorrow. I'll keep you posted in the app when I know what time. It's going to be after, after 12, I think, but I will keep you in the loop. And then I will see you with cookies for Friday. Hopefully that works for all of you. It's good to see you guys. I know. May is going to just be a whole thing. May is going to be a whole thing. So with that, law nerds, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a law nerd. Thank you for understanding that May is just, it's going to be May. And for all of you who have gone before with kids graduating and doing all the things, thank you tremendously for all your kind words. For all of you who've been and this is all of you who have been so incredibly compassionate, thank you for understanding. And I don't know how we all do this. It was so easy when I was the one in high school, which feels like yesterday. It's a whole different thing on this side. It really is. It really is. It's a whole bunch of emos. So, and I haven't even gotten into trying to break it to George yet. that his human is it's going to be a minute. I don't even know what we're going to do there. We're going to figure it out. Maybe more bird feeders so that the birds can entertain George. Because, oh boy, that cat is going to be upset. So anyway, it's a privilege to be here with you as always. I am always happy to share what's going on with me, my life, and riveting high adventure here in the Baker household. We're getting ready for guests, trying to finish projects too rapidly, trying to make sure we have enough food in the house, and being amused by the turkeys in the yard. It's May. You guys stay safe, take care, keep an eye on your weather, and I will see you tomorrow. I will see you Friday. And if you're watching on the replay crew, as always, I will see you in the next one. You guys are the best. Stay tuned in the app. We have lots of information, and we might have some new stuff for you soon. I know. Stay tuned. Bye, Law Nerds. I will see you where did my outro go? There it is. I will see you very soon. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you don't miss a live stream or any of the updates on the cases that you care about most with the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. It's a free download on iOS and Android, so I can keep you in the loop. Because you never know when something's going to pop off. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being a Law Nerd.